On the night of August 25, 1986, 18-year-old Jennifer Levin found herself drunk at Dorian's Red Hand, a bar near Central Park, New York. Although the evening initially seemed unremarkable, little did Jennifer realize that as she decided to call it a night and leave, it would begin a horrifying turn of events. In the early morning hours of the next day, around 6:15 a.m., a woman was passing through Central Park on her bicycle. As she was about to cross the Museum of Metropolitan Art, something out of the ordinary caught her eye. Jennifer, who had left the bar a few hours ago, was lying behind the museum. It seemed obvious that something was terribly wrong. Jennifer was not breathing, and she was partially naked. Riley immediately dialed 911, and that's when the police were handed a case that would soon cover every front page of every newspaper.
This was one of the most sensational criminal cases ever in New York City history.
The police immediately launched an investigation, with the team fanning out to inquire within the neighborhood about any information related to this heinous act. Their inquiries led them to Dorian's Red Hand, the same establishment where Jennifer had been that night. It was at this bar that the police uncovered the first big clue. The bar patrons informed investigators that Jennifer hadn't been alone that night. She had been there with some friends and later left the place with a man. Despite the lack of specific details about the man, this information proved crucial. The police were adept at unraveling the remaining pieces of the puzzle. The police swiftly contacted Jennifer's friends, and before long, they obtained comprehensive details about the night of the incident, including the name of the mysterious man. The man in question was 19-year-old Robert Chambers, a tall and handsome individual. On that fateful night, Chambers was at the bar sipping beer alone. He appeared notably moody and was ignoring all the party life at the bar. Around 1 a.m., Chambers spotted Jennifer and greeted her, and slowly, they started having a casual conversation. However, his girlfriend, Alex Kapp, a pretty 16-year-old girl, saw him engaging in conversation with Jennifer. Alex and Chambers had a prearranged date, but Chambers arrived over an hour late and didn't speak to her at all. However, he was engaged in a conversation with Jennifer. When Alex confronted him, Chambers acted very evasive, so in anger, Alex told him she didn't want to see him again. But all she got as a response was a taunting laugh from Chambers. This marked the beginning of a long conversation between Chambers and Jennifer. According to her friends, Chambers and Jennifer had a history of casual dating even before that night. Jennifer found Chambers attractive and had been intrigued by him for quite some time.
So how many times did you go out with Jennifer before that night in August?
3 times, I think.
3 times?
Yeah.
And you were intimate with her?
Yeah.
Eager to pursue a relationship with Chambers, Jennifer seized the opportunity presented by the fight between Chambers and his girlfriend. Over the next 3 hours, friends observed Jennifer engaging in flirtatious conversations with Chambers at the bar. At approximately 4:30 a.m., they left together. It was now time for the police to give Mr. Chambers a visit. It all happened on the same day, and after a few hours of the discovery of the body, the police were already at Chambers' home in Manhattan.
They went there so that he could help identify how she got separated from her friend. They saw deep, fresh, bloody scratches on both sides of his face.
When questioned about the scratches on his face, Chambers provided an interesting response to the police. He claimed that his cat was responsible for the marks on his face. However, upon inspecting the scratches, the police had doubts if they were really the result of a cat's actions. First of all, they checked the cat, and they found that it had been declawed, leaving it no chance of being able to scratch him. Moreover, the finger on his right hand also had a bite mark, and it didn't look like a cat did that. However, before assuming anything, the most important thing was to know more about the dreadful incident. But Chambers completely denied even going to the bar. However, his denial would lead nowhere, as he soon found himself sitting in the police station, and his statements were about to change drastically.
I didn't mean to hurt her. I liked her very much.
After admitting that he was in fact with Jennifer that night, his narrative quickly shifted into one where he portrayed himself as the victim.
She's w***ing you in the park? She's having her way with me, without my consent, with my hands behind my back, hurting me.
In simple words, Chambers said that Jennifer tried to assault him. While he gave the impression that she became a bit forceful with him, there's no concrete evidence to prove it. And by the latter half of the video, we'll tell you why him being assaulted by Jennifer was nothing but a fabricated lie. But for now, let's look at how the scratches on Chambers' face got there.
While we're sitting there, I was explaining this to her, saying I'm interested in other people and that you're going away and I don't want to be bothered. And she freaked out and she got up and knelt in front of me and she just scratched my face. And I have these marks. I didn't even notice until this morning.
Chambers ultimately had to confess that it wasn't his cat, but was indeed Jennifer. Moreover, he told the police what he did once the situation got rough.
So I reached up like this and grabbed, and I came down like that on my hand. She came over this way and landed right there, right next to the tree.
While his confession of striking Jennifer and killing her in the process would seem very honest at first, numerous inconsistencies in the details raised doubts about the credibility of his account.
Everything he said in that statement about how she died is absolutely untrue.
If all he said was a lie, then what had happened?
Some of the clothing on her had been pushed to the upper portion of her body.
Jennifer's body was discovered in a state suggesting a clear struggle, marked by visible injuries. Notably, there were hemorrhages in her throat area, indicating signs of strangulation. Dr. Maria Lazzolandi performed the autopsy and confirmed that Jennifer died because of strangulation. But Chambers stuck to his story.
But when you hear all these experts say it just couldn't have happened the way you're describing it,
Certain experts, the district attorney's experts.
it's very clear from the medical examiner's evidence and from the pathologists that you choked Jennifer Levin. You had your hands around her neck and you squeezed.
No, I did not.
Yet it wasn't just the bruises. The overall scene contradicted his statements. As the investigator mentioned, Jennifer's clothes were pulled up, indicating that it was more than just an accident. Her disheveled clothes and overall appearance painted the picture of a victim of assault.
When we came to the scene, it was so horrific. It was like an animal mauled her. Her skirt was above her waist. Her bra, which had wire, was wrapped around her neck. She had scratches. She had contusions, lacerations. It was just a terrible, horrific scene. From a father's point of view, myself having children, it was heartbreaking.
They were lines, long lines going in different directions.
Despite the clear evidence pointing towards Chambers committing a horrible act against Jennifer, proving it without his confession was going to be challenging. With a significant gap in the investigation, the long-awaited trial arrived after 2 years. Chambers' trial began on January 4th, 1988. The primary point of contention in the court centered around the issue of strangulation. Dr. Alandi testified on February 9th, 1988, stating that pinpoint hemorrhages seen in the soft tissue around Jennifer's eyes could result from constriction of the blood vessels in the neck. She clarified that this indicated compression of her neck, providing evidence that she had been strangled. Nevertheless, during cross-examination, Chambers' attorney, Jack Littman, proposed that Chambers might have choked Jennifer in an arm lock, causing potential death within seconds. Littman suggested that the marks on her neck could have been the result of Jennifer moving her head rapidly from side to side in a struggle for air. Dr. Alandi acknowledged that while such a scenario was theoretically possible, it didn't align with what happened in Jennifer's case.
Like Mike said, when he responded to the scene, it looked like a violent struggle. And I think that the detectives at the time that investigated thought for sure he was going to be, charged with the murder. I mean, he was charged with the murder, but prosecuted for the murder. And I think some of perhaps the DNA evidence wasn't presented during the trial, and maybe that's why he pled out to the manslaughter.
After 9 days of deliberation, on March 25th, 1998, without reaching a verdict, both the prosecution and Chambers agreed to a plea bargain. Chambers pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter, with a sentence ranging from 5 to 15 years. As part of the agreement, he also had to acknowledge that he intended to cause enough harm to Jennifer to result in her death.
I guess they had a feeling that the jury wasn't gonna come to the conclusion that they wanted, that the jury probably partially believed Chambers' story. So I think they settled for this manslaughter plea deal.
Chambers was ultimately sentenced to 15 years in prison.
The Levin family have gone through hell because of my actions, and I am sorry.
On February 14, 2003, Chambers was released from prison after completing his term. However, his haunting past was not about to fade away so easily. He did seem very happy being a free man again, but once again, he was about to find himself circled by the questions which were left unanswered 17 years ago.
Did you think about Jennifer Levin?
Every day.
Now, when it came to the day of the incident, Chambers provided a much more detailed account about it in a 48 Hours interview than what he had said prior to serving his sentence.
We never got undressed, and she reached down and she grabbed my testicles.
He claimed they were not fully undressed, but the way she was found contradicted his statement. Moreover, the bruises around her neck indicated strangulation rather than a mere hit. And so his story still didn't precisely align with the evidence. All he wanted at the time was to present it like an accident, but at the same time, show that he was regretting it. He was still resorting to playing the victim card. And when asked why he didn't call the police, he had one simple answer. An answer which, on the face of it, can't be questioned.
I'd never seen a dead person before. Her eyes are open and she's not moving. And I was just scared. I didn't do anything. I just sat there because I can never make up for the death of Jennifer Levin. I can never make up for the pain I caused her family. I've been a bad person. Am I a monster? No. Because if I were a monster, I wouldn't care. But I do.
He claimed that he cared, and that after he was finally released, it seemed like many people started to believe his stories.
You know, he could be a psychopath. Maybe he learned a little bit. He knew how to answer the questions, perhaps, and maybe they bought it. I mean, people seem to like believing this guy, and it wouldn't surprise me if they believed him again, that he's a good guy now and he's safe to release to society. Somebody bought his story once again.
However, people's view of him was about to change.
I think I killed him.
The video we just watched was from when Chambers was out on bail. It was a house party with girls in their underwear, and Chambers appeared to be thoroughly enjoying himself. However, it appears that he was fabricating stories once again, even after 17 years.
Rob, how could you be so dumb?
That seems to be a theme that runs through many things that I do.
Chambers also mentioned that he was still there when the police arrived.
I watched as everybody arrived. It seemed the whole world arrived. The whole world came to see what I did.
One might question why the police didn't interrogate Chambers immediately. However, the reason is that at that point, he was just another park goer to the police, and there was no direct link suggesting his potential involvement in the case. He was simply sitting on a stone wall at a distance. The perplexing aspect is that he must have maintained an innocent facade, even after knowing he had caused someone's death. This contradiction raised doubts about his claim of being scared and unable to act, and he continued to do this even after so many years.
You could have defended yourself without hurting her seriously, right?
I could have pushed. I could have yelled. I could have pulled her hair to the side.
Why didn't you do any of those things?
Because I wasn't thinking about what I should do in the situation.
Broadcaster Troy Roberts understood that it was time to raise the critical point in the story.
From the medical examiner's evidence and from the pathologists that you choked Jennifer Levin. You had your hands around her neck and you squeezed.
No, I did not.
There remains significant doubt about whether the injury was truly sustained as Chambers described, as strangulation marks and a bruise from being hit by someone appear distinctly different upon close observation.
He would literally have her, and I don't mean to ridicule this, bouncing down a hill in the park to have received all of these injuries. It's just an absurd story.
Moreover, there was clear indication of a struggle between Chambers and Jennifer.
There's one deep, severe scratch mark, and Jennifer had nails. That tells us that she was face to face with the person who was trying to kill her. That tells us that she wanted him off her body.
There was even a bite mark on Chambers' hand, which was clear evidence of a human biting him. Chambers had served his sentence, yet he maintained that he never intended to kill her. He displayed guilt, expressed regret, and even apologized. Despite all indications pointing to him intentionally causing Jennifer's death, the story couldn't reach the conclusion it deserved. People found it challenging to believe in the authenticity of his emotions.
I'm not willing to buy his words. I'm looking forward to seeing what his actions are in the next 15.
Chambers had tried to show that he was scared and feeling remorseful. However, his time in jail indicated nothing but a man with an attitude problem. Even after serving time for his heinous act in 1986, Chambers faced legal troubles in July 2005. He pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor drug charge, and on August 29th, he received a reduced sentence of 90 days in jail and a $200 fine for a license violation. Chambers was released from New York's Careaga Correctional Facility on July 25, 2023, after serving 15 years of his 19-year sentence. He'll be on parole until 2028. So, what do you think about this case? What do you think happened on that fateful day? Why do you think Robert Chambers killed Jennifer Levin? Let us know your opinion. We'd love to hear from you. Also, if you have any case in mind that you'd like us to cover, feel free to drop your suggestions in the comments section. Subscribe to our channel to explore various crime cases from around the world. Until next time, stay safe.
On February 18, 2023, the Oshkosh Police Department got a frantic call about a problem at the house in the 500 block of Jefferson Street. The caller said that his sister had gone crazy and her ex-boyfriend had been badly injured.
They're on top of each other.
What do you mean so they both were on top of each other?
He was like on top of her trying to take the knife out of her hand or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, he like had her wrist down.
And then holding her wrist, like straddling her like that? Okay.
Officer Bennett was one of the first to respond to the call, and what he found was like a scene from a horror movie. The house was a total mess with blood all over it, and there stood 22-year-old Megan Taylor Lund, crying her eyes out and trembling. Just a little while ago, she had stabbed her ex-boyfriend 19 times with a pair of scissors. Morgan seemed normal and totally fine. So why did she stab her ex-boyfriend in such an awful manner? What secrets could be hiding behind those closed doors? Morgan and her ex-boyfriend, whose name was never disclosed, had been overjoyed to start their life together as a couple, though details regarding when and where they met are scarce. When they welcomed their daughter into the world, sometime in early 2022, their happiness knew no bounds. But everything changed on February 18, 2023, when their lives changed completely, shattering their happiness. Officer Bennett was the first to respond to the 911 call. When he entered the house and reached the top of the stairs, a wave of shock hit him. The room upstairs was a complete mess, with blood splattered everywhere, which had turned it into a gruesome scene. The whole house seemed to be in disarray, which hinted at the intensity of whatever had unfolded within its walls. He saw a young blonde woman. She stood there wearing nothing but a huge blue UCLA sweatshirt. But what caught his attention was the eerie sight of blood covering her legs, feet, and the front and back of her arms and hands. She was leaning over the back of a black sofa in the living room, and her attention was wholly focused on a shirtless man. With determination, she pressed down on his chest and shoulder, her actions suggesting a desperate attempt to help him. They wasted no time in rushing the severely injured man to receive urgent treatment. Then, turning their attention to Morgan, they approached her to assess her condition and to understand what had happened, as she seemed visibly shaken and troubled.
Please help me. Please. Oh, wait. Oh my God.
Okay, what is your name?
Morgan. UND.
Who are you saying stop to?
I got 5 of you on me.
Where? Right back here. Did somebody start taking photos? The weapon is right here. Scissor? Yep.
No.
I gotta go with the victim. Is this gentleman holding the baby? Yes. Okay.
The officer observed that she seemed utterly shattered and confused by what had just happened. She was crying and screaming and begged for assistance. While one officer tried to soothe her and get her to talk, another officer approached her brother, Ethan, to piece together the events that had unfolded.
This gentleman holding the baby? Talk to him, correct, okay. What's going on, man?
I'm freaking out.
Okay, is that your sister?
Yes.
Okay, so what happened?
I'm just sleeping.
You were sleeping, okay.
Sleeping, and I just hear screaming. I thought they were just fighting like normal. And it starts getting loud. I'm like, what the hell?
Was he screaming back at her?
It was kind of like a, I don't even know, like, get off me, help. I just got my.
And that was him saying that?
I don't even remember.
Okay.
And open the door. They're on top of each other.
What do you mean on? So they both were on top of each other?
He was like on top of her trying to take the knife out of her hand or something. I don't know.
Okay. So, okay, how was she positioned? Like, when you say when he was on top of her, was he like straddling her?
Yeah, he like had her wrist down.
And then holding her wrist, like straddling her like that? Okay.
And then
When Ethan finally opened his door, he had sensed something wasn't right after hearing the loud noises. This was when he found Morgan's ex-boyfriend on top of her, both drenched in blood. He was desperately trying to restrain her, but Morgan seemed consumed by something and relentlessly stabbed at him as if she was under some dark spell. It was a scary scene full of chaos and fear.
Was he bleeding area at that time?
Yeah.
Where was he? Where'd you see?
his arm and stuff, and then I seen the couch. Help! Go over there. I don't even know. That was like when it was ending.
Okay. Was she saying anything at this time?
She's just freaking out.
Does she do any drugs?
No.
Does she drink?
I mean,
okay.
She goes out with her friends.
Okay, but no illegal drug use that you're aware of?
No.
Okay.
The officer needed to question Morgan to find out if she was influenced by some external factors that pushed her to commit such a horrific act. This information would guide them in handling the case effectively and framing their questions during Morgan's interview.
Yes, and that's their kid. This is uncle. This is female's brother. He sometimes stays with them. He doesn't live here, doesn't get mail here. Basically, he just woke up to some loud yelling. He steps out, goes behind the island, sees male victim already bleeding on top of female on the couch straddling, holding her wrist down. He goes, I don't know if she had a knife or whatever she used at the time, but he was already bleeding. And then what, he was yelling, stop, or...
After speaking to Ethan, who couldn't provide them with much information, the officers again turned their attention to Morgan. She was the only one who could truly explain what had happened that morning and why she had attacked her ex-boyfriend. What they learned from her was both shocking and unsettling.
No. Morgan, can you tell me a little bit more about...
No!
No? And why is that? Do you feel... Why are you saying no? I don't understand what you're reacting to right now. Are you just scared about the situation, or do you not want to talk to me?
I want my dad. I want my dad to come here. I was sleeping, and then I don't know. I was like half awake. I've been out here every morning with fever. And I mean, I've seen the same thing before. I've never done anything like that.
You have seen the same thing before. Okay. Do you remember coming out here? And were you asleep immediately?
Coming out here again.
Okay.
6 a.m.
I got her out at 6.
And then you went back to bed. Is that right?
Yeah, I went back to bed. I didn't get much sleep last night. I don't know why.
Okay.
And then I finally fell asleep.
And you what?
I finally fell asleep and I was seeing all these weird things. I don't know. There's blood all over me.
According to Morgan, she remembered that she woke up at around 6:30 a.m. that morning and found her baby peacefully sleeping beside her in the room. Despite her best efforts, going back to sleep eluded her, and she kept tossing and turning in frustration. She tried everything to sleep, but nothing seemed to work. So worried about waking up her baby due to her restlessness, Morgan decided to move the little one to a big playpen in the living room. Her ex-boyfriend was also there, sleeping on the couch. So she figured he could keep an eye on the baby while she tried to get some more sleep. But here's where things get intriguing. Morgan claimed that she didn't remember waking up again after that moment. She said that the last thing she could recall before the chaos unfolded was drifting off to sleep. This suggested a gap in her memory leading up to and during the violent incident, which added a mysterious twist to the story. As the officer listened to Morgan's story, a sense of suspicion crept over him. Was she really telling the truth, or was she trying to paint herself as innocent? He pondered the possibility of amnesia, where people forget recent events. But something didn't quite add up with his explanation and Morgan's demeanor. To get to the bottom of things, he decided to ask her directly if she had been under the influence of drugs.
Do you take any other medication right now?
No.
Okay. Had you been drinking at all last night?
No.
No?
I was supposed to work today.
Okay. And you would not be in any trouble for it at all, but have you used any kind of recreational drugs?
No. I never
Okay.
did.
Not even like simple things like weed or anything like that?
No.
No?
Oldie vape, that's all I do.
Okay.
What Morgan revealed next left everyone stunned. It was something out of the ordinary, not your everyday occurrence. While rare, it's something that could happen to anyone, for various reasons like past trauma or facing difficult situations. Morgan confessed she had been battling hallucinations and mental health struggles and had been feeling like she was seeing a mysterious figure everywhere, even experiencing out-of-body moments. It was like reality and imagination blurred into one eerie tale.
But it was like, then I was like, is he attacking the thing that I saw? I don't know, I was all confused, like I thought I saw something that wasn't happening.
Right. How long have you had those
Like a
experiences?
year, or like a half of a year, I don't know.
Half of a year?
Like this past year it started happening, I don't know.
Okay. You're 21?
Yeah. So 2022 it started happening. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
So whenever you see these things, how do you feel?
I just felt like my heart was beating really fast. I was really scared.
Okay.
And I feel like completely somebody else.
You feel like somebody else?
Like it's not even me. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I don't hurt anybody.
Do you usually see the same thing?
And I feel like somebody else. I feel like it's not even me.
If you had to physically describe what you were seeing, like big or small, black or white, gray, blue, whatever.
It was like a blob.
Like a blob.
Like a black blob. Like a blob, but like a figure.
Okay.
I don't know. I have something wrong.
So you see a dark figure, but it doesn't look like a person. Am I understanding that right? It's just sort of the shape.
And I could hear him. Yeah.
Who?
And then I came out and I saw something like over him. So I don't know like what was like real and what's not real. I don't know if I was dreaming.
But the other experiences that you've had have been when you were awake?
yeah, we're like half awake.
Okay. Right before you went to bed or right after you woke up?
Both.
Both.
No,
But it's
no,
usually...
I would never do that. I would never
Right.
do that to him.
But it's usually that same sort of dark figure that you see?
Yeah, but it's something in my head. It's not like, I don't know how to explain it.
But when you see it, your heart beats really fast and you feel afraid. Okay.
And I just feel like something's taking over me, like, I don't know, and now it's like everything's normal.
And that happens every time.
What is going on?
Morgan shared that for the past 6 months to a year, she had been haunted by the presence of a dark, non-human figure. It didn't talk or tell her what to do, but she heard disturbing voices from it. Just seeing this eerie figure filled her with fear, and that's what she had faced this morning when that shadow seemed to actually become real, making her feel trapped in her own frightening imagination. According to Morgan, her memory was all mixed up, like trying to remember a dream or an experience that wasn't real. She thought she had heard her ex-boyfriend yelling at their daughter, but it was all unclear. It's like when you wake up from a strange dream and can't quite separate it from reality. She said that she remembered finding herself in the living room where she saw a terrifying dark figure on top of her ex-boyfriend, attacking him. She was so confused and unsure about how to help him that she panicked, rushed to the couch, and grabbed a pair of scissors that were laying nearby. Acting instinctively, she tried to defend her ex-boyfriend by attacking the dark, ominous figure with the scissors. It wasn't until her ex-boyfriend fought back and yelled at her, trying to snap her out of what she thought was a terrifying dream, that Morgan finally understood. She realized the figure she was attacking wasn't some imaginary threat. It was actually her ex-boyfriend, and everything was taking place in front of her daughter. Overwhelmed with shock, Morgan let go of the scissors and hurriedly tried to assist her ex-boyfriend by applying pressure to his chest to stem the flow of blood. The sudden realization of her actions left her frightened and disoriented. Despite Morgan's account sounding plausible, the police were torn between two possible scenarios. One was that she truly suffered from an untreated disorder, which would clearly explain her actions. The other theory was more sinister, as it suggested that she might be using the supposed disorder as an excuse to avoid punishment for the attack. In this scenario, her true intention could have been to harm or even kill her ex-boyfriend.
Oh my God. I would have never hurt anybody.
I believe you.
Well, again,
Yeah.
they can give me medication.
And they make medications specifically for if you are seeing things that you know aren't there, they can give you stuff that helps address that specifically. Have you had other things that you don't think are there, like where you're hearing voices, or?
Not really hearing voices.
No?
Mm-mm.
And does the figure ever speak?
It's makes noises, like dark noises, deep voice, but not saying anything.
Okay.
I'm not trying to do that.
You weren't trying to do what ended up happening, you mean? Okay. Can you wait right there for me? Thank you.
So after listening to the whole situation and Morgan's explanation of events, the officers delivered the news that she was under arrest and needed to go to the police station. She teared up and pleaded with them to tell her what would be happening next with her. She was already shaken by the attack. The thought of being arrested filled her with even more fear. She worried about her daughter and whether she'd ever see her again.
Through it.
So you guys, you know what's gonna happen.
We don't actually. Genuinely
Like,
not.
what's most likely in this in this.
We don't ever know.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Like
we've been lying to
seen
you to give you.
before. My dad worked for a prison for so long, and I worked at the mental health institute. I've seen like things like this, and I just want to know like what's most likely going to happen to me.
I've been doing this for 12 years, and I've never been in this situation before.
Yeah.
So this exact situation, and each one is a little bit different, but this exact situation...
What I will ask, not to intervene, is your mom and dad are outside, they're gonna take the little one. Is it possible, Miles, to cuff her at the vehicle?
Sure, where's...
I'm not going to do anything.
Okay. I just don't want them to see her being cuffed. Are you okay?
Yeah, I don't want them to see.
Okay. We'll just walk with you and then go from there. I would just ask, just don't really talk or anything to them at this point. We'll allow that later, okay? Just we get everything.
As the officers escorted Morgan to the squad car, she cried and pleaded for her father's help. As someone who knew about the issues she had been facing, she hoped he could make sense of the situation and provide an explanation for what had happened. Once Morgan was in handcuffs and on her way to the police station, her brother Ethan was already in an interview room, sharing written statements about Morgan and her ex-boyfriend's troubled relationship. Their life wasn't as happy and picture-perfect as it seemed to be on the surface.
So you talk about her postpartum, possibly, or that's what you're seeing. When did you start seeing this?
Probably ever since I came home from Canada. It seems different, getting emotional, talking about it. She's brought it up, not just to me, but my family.
So when did you come back from Canada?
April, March.
Okay. So almost a year ago?
Yep.
Okay. So was she talking about that before the baby was born, or while she was pregnant, or?
No. I never really seen her when she was pregnant, but
okay.
Not that I know of.
So after the baby was born, what was she talking about?
Just whenever we'd be hanging out or whatever, me, her, and her boyfriend, and like if she would get sad or something, she would bring it up, and I don't know, we just didn't know how to deal with it. We didn't know, if she's just saying this or what, but and she definitely started acting way different.
Can you kind of explain what that acting was, or?
They're just like maybe her mood overall and how she's going about her day, and not being as active, and just really showing her emotions, I guess.
So, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, I'm just trying to figure out what you're saying. Like, is she kind of a flat effect, or is she really emotional, or what is it that you're seeing?
It's like she'll be crying out of the blue or something, or yelling, which is just stuff I've never seen. Okay. So that's stuff like that is different from when we lived with my mom in high school and stuff. She wasn't like that.
Okay. So kind of out of nowhere.
She was saying she was seeing something. I'd heard her when I was in the spare bedroom after all the cops and stuff. I heard her talking to one of the cops saying she seen.
Okay.
When I was on the phone, she was saying, I don't know what was going on. I didn't mean it. I think I was dreaming. Like I didn't have control. Just something along the lines of that.
Okay. Have you seen or heard them talk about breaking up, or what that status is? Or?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely breaking up. Like, I think their lease is up in, I want to say, June 1st, maybe, and then both trying to get their own apartment, I think.
Okay, so they've basically broken up, but they're together at that house because...
It's like co-parenting right now or something.
Okay. And how long has that been going on? That they've basically broken up and decided they're going their separate ways?
I mean, it's hard to tell because they're so on and off, but I'd say definitely a solid month that they've been distant. Like,
okay. Kind of more roommates than boyfriend and girlfriend.
Ethan shared that Morgan and her ex-boyfriend had a rocky relationship. Her ex even claimed that Morgan had physically harmed him and hit him multiple times. Despite having a child together and sharing a home, Morgan and her ex-boyfriend's relationship was far from harmonious. They argued constantly over trivial issues, to the point where he would simply shut down during arguments and distance himself from her. Eventually, their relationship reached a breaking point, and they had decided to end it 1 to 2 months before the stabbing incident. Ethan also told the officer that Morgan had been dealing with depression, especially for the past year since the birth of her child, who was now 11 months old. This revelation made the police wonder if the end of their relationship contributed to Morgan's mental health struggles and if the stabbing was an act of revenge. They were trying to connect the dots between Morgan's personal challenges and the tragic events that had unfolded. As the interview with Ethan concluded, Morgan found herself in an interrogation room. The officer began by reading her Miranda rights and informing her of her legal rights. In response, Morgan asked the detective if she should have a lawyer present before or after questioning.
It's, I don't know it's completely up to you. I don't have any statistics. That's a decision you personally have to make. So.
Once more, Morgan requested the detective to contact her father. Over the phone, her father reassured her to remain composed and to not fear. He firmly believed that she was innocent and advised her to stay calm and trust him.
Correct. But again, if you want one at some point, you can certainly
I don't know,
stop.
I've never been in this situation before. I don't know, like, what outcome is. Yeah. I would just ask my dad what I'm supposed to do.
Okay. We can do that.
Can I ask him?
Sure. Do you have his number, or?
While Morgan waited for her father to arrive, half an hour seemed to stretch on forever. When he finally showed up, he revealed the truth behind Morgan's actions. He explained to the officer that Morgan had been battling postpartum depression, and up until now, nothing this violent had ever occurred during her struggles with this health issue.
What happened this morning? Not too much. My son called me a couple times. I didn't answer, and when I called him back, I think he was probably calling you guys and stuff. But he said she was like sleeping and she had a bad dream, or she said she didn't know where she was and stuff, and she didn't know what was going on. She's been having she's had postpartum depression since she had the baby, and my wife was a social worker for years, and program director and stuff, and she kept saying she's having mental health issues, and I would bounce around it with her, but I didn't want to accuse her of having mental problems and stuff, so I never pushed it far enough to make her go get help. Okay. But as far as today goes, Ethan said, and I saw her too, it was she wasn't even, it seemed like she wasn't even there. She's never grabbed a weapon and done anything like that before. And she's just been, I know she's been crying out of the blue, she'll just start bawling for, nothing's going on, and she'll just start bawling. When I say she said weird things to me, she'll say weird things to me, and I don't say anything. I just let it go because I know she's having mental issues, so I don't want to say the wrong thing.
What do you mean by weird things?
No, just weird. She'll not just talking about weird stuff. I don't know. I can't think of a specific example. Just it's weird, not weird crazy stuff, but talking about stuff that we weren't talking about or something, and it's just she's different. She's way different. And then, I'm pissed at myself because we wanted her to get a good job and everything, and now she's now that this happened, I'm thinking, I told my wife, how stupid are we? We encouraged her to go work at the mental health facility because my wife was a program director there for a long time. Okay. And we thought it's a great job. It's a state job. I ran a prison for a living, so we're we know it's a good job. I never thought for 1 second about the stuff that she was going to be reading and hearing about, people she was going to be talking to when she's having her own issues already. It was stupid. I never even thought about that. But I can tell you right now, she's never grabbed a weapon and done anything. I was shocked when he called me. It doesn't make any sense. Or what happened? I don't exactly know what happened, but I just...
Postpartum depression is a type of depression that some people experience after having a baby. It can make them feel sad, anxious, and overwhelmed, and it might be hard for them to take care of themselves and their baby. For Morgan, dealing with postpartum depression made her feel even more stressed and sad than she already was. It might have made her thoughts and feelings confusing, which could have affected her actions in unexpected ways and helped build the visions of the dark character. After the interview ended, Morgan talked to her father, and together they decided not to talk to the detectives anymore unless they had a lawyer with them. They wanted a trusted advisor by their side to make sure everything was handled properly and to protect their rights. Despite sustaining 19 stab wounds all over his body, including to his back, right shoulder, chest, face, and hands, Morgan's ex-boyfriend miraculously survived. He mentioned that while Morgan had shown abusive and sometimes violent behavior in the past, nothing had occurred between them the night of the incident. He also stated to his knowledge she had never threatened to kill him. The police charged Morgan of attempted first-degree homicide for stabbing her ex-boyfriend 19 times while he slept, but in August 2023, Morgan pleaded not guilty due to mental illness, explaining that her actions were influenced by her mental state. Later on, she accepted the plea deal to reduce her charges. Instead of the initial charges, she pleaded no contest to aggravated battery with the intent to cause great bodily harm and second-degree recklessly endangering safety. As a result, she received a sentence of 7 years and 6 months in prison on November 3, 2023. Additionally, she will have to serve 5 years of extended supervision for the aggravated battery charge. After that, she'll serve another 5 years of probation for second-degree recklessly endangering safety. She's currently serving her time in prison. Morgan's case sheds light on the complexities of mental health issues and their intersection with the legal system. While her actions resulted in severe consequences, her plea of not guilty by reason of mental illness highlights the importance of addressing mental health issues within our society. As she serves her time in prison, questions linger. How can we better identify and support individuals struggling with mental health issues before they escalate to such tragic events? And how can the legal system change to make sure that people with mental illness are treated fairly and get the right outcomes when they're involved in criminal cases? We'd love to hear from you. If there's a case you'd like us to cover, don't hesitate to drop your recommendations in the comments section below. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled for the next mystery to unfold.
He tried to rape me again, and I tried to ask him to stop it, and I shot him.
You shot him?
Yes, I shot him. I just kept shooting.
You shot him where?
I shot him all over. I didn't want to hurt him, but he wouldn't stop.
September 13, 2013. This frantic call reached the Atlanta Police Department. The caller, 30-year-old Victoria Rickman, conveyed in an anguished tone that she had shot her boyfriend. Responding to the call, police arrived at a residence on Clifton Road in DeKalb County, Georgia, Atlanta, where they discovered the lifeless body of 30-year-old William Carter Jr., riddled with bullets and soaked in blood. So what was the truth behind this tragic event? Was it a clear-cut case of self-defense? Or was there more to the story than initially met the eye? Victoria, fondly known as Tori by her loved ones, entered into marriage at a young age. However, things didn't pan out the way she wanted. Her marital union ended in divorce after a few tumultuous years marked by allegations of abuse from both parties. There was a silver lining amidst this toil. Out of it came a son, who loved ones said was Victoria's pride and joy, and the center of her world.
Her son is her everything. Would even get outside, play football, getting dirty with him, everything.
In 2010, a few years following her divorce, Victoria embarked on a relationship with a local businessman, William Carter Jr. Much like Victoria, William was also divorced and had a kid of his own. The two met through mutual acquaintances and quickly formed a bond over shared interests. Their children, Victoria's son and William's daughter, were around the same age, which made things even easier.
He was good around his daughter, and she admired that about him. They had a lot of things in common.
Their relationship progressed steadily, reaching a point where Victoria and William became engaged and decided to move in together.
She wanted to have a family, be married again, and have that for her and her son.
However, the once promising relationship soon soured. Regular arguments became the norm, and before long, they were living separate lives.
It was just back and forth, just very toxic.
Well, I know it was on and off.
Victoria made troubling allegations against William, accusing him of being abusive towards her. She recounted incidents where he allegedly resorted to physical violence, leaving visible marks on her body.
He always said he was sorry. He begged me for forgiveness, said he'd go to therapy.
Victoria's distressing experiences didn't go unnoticed by her friends, who grew increasingly concerned about her safety as she confided in them about the altercations.
I've witnessed some bruisings, for sure, after some altercations.
She finally started showing me bruises and stuff on her. And I told her, I said, you need to document this, because if something happens to you, no one's gonna know.
During their turbulent 3-year relationship, Victoria and William accumulated numerous police reports against each other, documenting a range of incidents from domestic disputes to allegations of assault and battery. But no matter how bad things got, they somehow always found a way back to each other.
I look back on it now and I'm like, how could I have been so stupid? You know, how could I have been so forgiving? Like, what's wrong with me to, like, make me go back to that?
However, on that fateful September day, it all came to a head. At around 2:30 a.m. on September 13, 2013, Victoria Rickman called the Atlanta Police Department to report that she had shot her boyfriend, William Carter, in self-defense after he attacked and assaulted her in a frenzied rage.
He tried to rape me again, and I tried to ask him to stop, and I shot him.
You shot him?
Victoria also said that she didn't mean to kill him, but she had to protect herself.
Yes, I shot him. I just kept shooting.
You shot him where?
I shot him all over. I didn't want to hurt him, but he wouldn't stop.
The responding officers rushed over to her place on Clifton Road in Atlanta, Georgia. The lead detective, Summer Benton, was a highly respected member of the Atlanta Police Department, having been a part of 65 homicide cases. When Benton was first informed about Victoria's call, she gave her the benefit of the doubt.
I, of course, think this is going to probably be a self-defense case. She's got a rapist off the street. All I thought was, I want to shake her hand.
But the investigation was just starting. As Detective Benton and her team arrived at the scene, they were trailed by a television crew from the series Inside Homicide, capturing every moment of their investigation on camera. Right from the get-go, Detective Benton sensed that something wasn't right at the crime scene. Upon the officer's arrival, Victoria stood in the doorway wearing pajamas with wet hair, holding her small dog. She informed officers, "He raped me again, and I shot him." However, there were no apparent signs of injury on her. Additionally, the home appeared undisturbed, with nothing seeming out of place.
As soon as I stepped foot in that back bedroom, I knew we had a problem. There didn't appear to be any signs of disarray or a fight. Nothing looked like what it should have looked like.
Officers discovered William's body in the back bedroom of the house, lying on the bed with multiple gunshot wounds. He was naked, with his watch placed on the nightstand and a gold chain necklace held in his left hand. Nearby, his clothes were strewn on the floor, and a pair of Rickman's underwear was found wrapped around a used tampon. Following the discovery, William's body was transported to the medical examiner's office while Victoria was taken to Grady Hospital for physical examination and a kit. During her examination, she recounted to the treating physician that William had forced her into intercourse, followed by restraining and assaulting her. In an act of self-defense, she claimed to have grabbed a gun from the nightstand and shot him. However, the results of the examination raised doubts. Although vaginal swabbings matched a partial profile of William's DNA, the examining physician found no injuries on her consistent with her description of the events, nor any signs of trauma to her vaginal cavity. By the time Benton got wind of this, she was already side-eyeing Victoria's account. This skepticism was evident as Benton discussed the case with a prosecutor, a moment captured on the reality TV show.
Any indication from the hospital of any injury to her at all?
There's nothing. She has no scratches, no bruising. Bye.
Back at the scene of the crime, the cops found a total of 9 shell casings and 1 lone bullet scattered around the bedroom. The murder weapon, a .40 caliber semi-automatic firearm, was found inside the nightstand drawer on the side of the bed, farthest from William's body. Blood spatter was observed on the wall, floor, curtains, window, and a pillow on the floor. The state's crime scene expert analyzed the blood spatter patterns and determined that William was shot in the back while standing and facing the bedroom wall. He then fell onto the bed, where the remaining shots were fired.
We believe he was standing next to the bed facing the window when he was shot in the back 3 times, which then one of those shots filled his lungs with blood, which caused him to cough, causing the blood spray pattern on the wall next to the window. And then we believe he fell back onto the bed. As he's lying on the bed, she is then finishing him off, firing more shots into his chest.
An autopsy revealed that William was shot 9 times, 3 times in the chest, 3 times in the back, once in the arm, and twice in the head. 3 of the gunshot wounds showed evidence of stippling, indicating close-range firing, while the remaining 6 did not. Additionally, William bore bruises on his chin and left arm, likely inflicted by a blunt object. The medical examiner's verdict was clear. William Carter succumbed to the fatal consequences of his gunshot wounds. Meanwhile, after her hospital examination, Victoria faced an intense interrogation conducted by Detective Benton.
So you're saying you're willing to speak with me without an attorney present today?
I'll speak with you about some of the things you...
Throughout the interrogation, Victoria maintained her stance of self-defense, alleging William had a history of abuse towards her, and that this wasn't the first time William had laid hands on her. But each time, he had evaded consequences.
He had been very abusive and he beat me and hurt me quite a few times and got off every time.
However, Victoria refused to disclose more without legal representation.
So I cannot ask you any questions.
She then underwent a thorough examination for injuries and was photographed as evidence.
Anything on your back? Just hold. There you go.
During a subsequent round of questioning, tensions flared when Victoria was asked to surrender her phone.
That's your phone. Have your phone.
Ma'am, why are you fighting with me? Because you're grabbing stuff out of my hand that's inappropriate.
Because it's evidence.
After a grueling interrogation, Victoria received the grim news. She was being arrested and charged with her boyfriend's murder, a mere 6.5 hours after the incident. Detective Benton noted Victoria's lack of emotion at the news. According to her, she didn't bat an eye.
I advised her that she's being arrested for murder, and she simply says, okay. No screaming up and down, I'm innocent, I didn't do this.
Was it shock or indifference that kept her expressionless? To crack the case wide open, detectives knew they had to dig deeper. While Victoria remained in custody, the investigation pressed forward. Like in many cases, the probing began right at the victim's doorstep, or in this case, his parents' doorstep. William James Carter and Cairo Chisholm Carter were reeling from the shock of their son's sudden death.
Hi, is this Mr. Carter? My name is Investigator Benton. I'm with the City of Atlanta Police Department. I've got some really bad news.
Right from the beginning, William's parents weren't buying Victoria's self-defense story.
Well, when she said this was a self-defense case, what was your reaction?
I mean, I about puked. I mean, it's like, no, it's not either.
In a chat with Detective Benton, William's father recounted a troubling episode involving his son in January 2012, more than a year prior. That day, William had arrived at his parents' residence, visibly injured and bleeding. He bore a wound to the back of his head and a bite mark on his shoulder. According to William Sr., his son claimed that during a heated altercation with Victoria, she had attacked him with a hammer and bitten him on the shoulder. Victoria didn't stop there either. She even told the officers she cracked William on the head with the hammer in self-defense and showed off bruises on her wrists as proof. But William wasn't having any of it. He insisted Victoria had simply gone crazy. Still, he wound up getting arrested and charged with battery and assault.
After that incident, he said if she'd have had a gun, she'd have killed you.
Despite warnings issued by his parents, William decided to patch things up with Victoria. But even his parents got a first-hand taste of Victoria's temper when they made it crystal clear that she wasn't welcome in their home.
2 weeks later, she's standing in our driveway with Will. So I said, you can't ever come over here again. She just snapped. She got furious with me. And she said, you can't tell me what to do. She said, I have a gun. I know how to use it. It's like, whoa.
The charges against William were eventually dropped when Victoria came clean to prosecutors, admitting she had fabricated the assault claims. Unfortunately, their ugly fights didn't end there. In May 2013, Victoria forcefully entered William's home in Cobb County without permission, grabbed him by his gold necklace, and forcibly led him around the house, demanding to know who he had been speaking to. Despite William's effort to remove her from his home, she ran through the neighborhood alleging assault. Police intervention followed, and when they showed up, Victoria flipped the script, accusing William of assaulting her. This time, Victoria was the one getting slapped with handcuffs and tagged with battery charges. And those charges were still hanging over her head when William met his untimely end. To William's parents, it seemed that their son had fallen victim to a fatal attraction.
It's as if nobody could have done anything. He wouldn't listen to anybody about this.
His biggest flaw was that he couldn't see the evil in her.
Yet people on Victoria's side had something different to say. According to her friends, William was the true threat, a man who consistently subjected Victoria to abuse.
She went through some horrible things. This man abused her emotionally, physically, and sexually.
They claimed Victoria had even taken photos to document her bruises in the past.
I think the constant abuse that she was going through, she just could not take it anymore.
Victoria's dad, Paul Rickman, couldn't wrap his head around how his daughter wound up in such a mess.
Having known that she had been physically abused by him, I was shocked completely to even find out that he was there or that anything had happened.
However, Victoria's best friend, Brittany Morgan, was convinced that on that fateful night, Victoria was left with no other option.
That day, it was either her or him. I believe that with all my heart, because there's no way in the world that she would do that unless it was her life or his life.
Scrutiny also fell upon the murky history of William Carter. As it turned out, his past wasn't as squeaky clean as it seemed at first glance. Years back, he had a rap sheet peppered with arrests for property damage and drug-related offenses. Even his own parents acknowledged that he had struggled with drug addiction at one point.
Like what kind of drugs?
I don't know, you name it. The doctor said it was more than something like marijuana. It was dangerous.
After nearly a decade of battling addiction, he checked himself into rehab and made a complete turnaround in his life.
He actually overcame his addiction and started his own business.
I was extremely proud of Will, and he never gave up. He didn't give up on anything.
But was this troubled past enough evidence to support Victoria's claims of abuse? To Victoria's close circle of friends, it was more than enough. They firmly believed that she was desperately trying to escape from the toxic relationship. In fact, just 4 months before the fatal incident in May 2013, Victoria took steps to seek a restraining order against William in Cobb County Court. Although the office was closed on that day, a sheriff's deputy named Frederick Price, who was working there, noticed her bruises and intervened. Concerned for her safety, Price provided her with a .40 caliber semi-automatic gun for protection.
She told me that her ex had beaten her and she needed a protective order.
He even took her to a gun range for practice, convinced that she was genuinely in danger.
He encouraged her to use that gun when it came to Will Carter.
Ironically, it was this very same gun that Victoria ended up using to fatally shoot her lover. As speculation swirled regarding which party had posed the greater threat, William or Victoria, the case became a focal point of controversy, dividing opinions and communities alike. Meanwhile, Victoria found herself confined to the DeKalb County Jail. The request for bail had been denied, and all she could do was wait for her day in court. Just when the dust seemed to settle, the reality TV show Inside Homicide dropped their own episode, delving deep into the story of Victoria Rickman and William Carter. The spotlight was mainly on Detective Summer Benton's investigation, painting a narrative that leaned heavily towards the notion of Victoria being guilty of a calculated murder, even before she faced trial and conviction. Victoria's friends and family were furious by what they perceived as bias and premature judgment portrayed by the television show.
How would you describe this show?
Just filled with lies.
She's claiming that
She's claiming when you haven't even got on the scene yet to know. You haven't even spoke with her. You don't even know what's happened yet.
They condemned it for its one-sided portrayal and criticized the lack of consent regarding Victoria's continuous filming, especially considering her alleged assault.
Looks like she was training to kill.
Wow. Please give me a break. It just came across as what's going to make a good TV episode.
They feared that this footage being aired for public entertainment could seriously jeopardize Victoria's chances of receiving a fair trial. To provide Victoria with a platform to share her side of the story, reporter Erin Moriarty of 48 Hours arranged an interview with Victoria via an inmate video calling system before her murder trial. In the interview, Victoria stuck to her self-defense narrative, while also voicing her concerns about the investigation not being conducted thoroughly, and the detectives jumping to conclusions about her guilt too fast.
Everything was done for a TV show, and there was no real investigation. I'm innocent of the charges that are alleged against me. Unfortunately, I've been humiliated, dehumanized by the system publicly without my consent.
During the interview, Victoria made a startling revelation, claiming that on the night of the murder, William was acting erratically.
He had relapsed and was intoxicated, and it was a very, very, very serious situation.
Unfortunately, this claim couldn't be substantiated as Detective Benton never requested William's toxicology report following his death. Later, Benton admitted that as it was her first homicide case in DeKalb County, she was unaware of the different procedural requirements.
I had no idea that you have to specially request a victim's tox and blood alcohol. So even though they had taken his blood and held on to it, at some point they then disposed of it.
So it was destroyed? The blood was destroyed?
From my understanding, it was.
Victoria, however, didn't believe that was the case.
I think it's huge that she did not do a tox free, knowing she was getting rid of evidence that was pertinent to my defense and to my innocence.
After spending nearly 4 years behind bars, Victoria's trial finally began on August 22, 2017. Much like the case itself, the trial proved to be anything but straightforward, with both sides presenting their evidence in an attempt to sway the jury. In the DeKalb County courtroom, defense lawyer Amanda Clark Palmer found herself going head-to-head with attorney Sheila Ross, renowned as one of Georgia's most formidable prosecutors. The stage was set for a legal battle of epic proportions. The prosecution opened by alleging that Victoria deliberately murdered her boyfriend in a premeditated act of violence.
The evidence will show that she did not shoot William Carter Jr. out of fear, but rather anger. He and this defendant were involved in what could only be described as an on-again, off-again, toxic relationship. Very Jerry Springerish. You'll hear a lot out of her mouth that she's an abused woman, that she has PTSD, that she has been. You'll hear the tears and you'll see the tears. So just be ready for it. But we're gonna ask that you look past that, and we're gonna ask that you render a verdict that speaks the truth of what happened to William Carter Jr. that night, which is nothing short of murder. Thank you.
In contrast, the defense argued that Victoria acted out of fear and self-defense, emphasizing killing William was never her intention.
This case is about domestic violence. He abused her physically, verbally, and emotionally. She felt like he was going to do something terrible to her, based on the way he was acting and based on the fact that he said, "I'm going to kill you."
Palmer also highlighted the traumatic impact of the biased investigation and the sensationalized TV show episode on the case.
And she's kind of like narrating what she's doing to the cameras. No one asks Victoria, who's just been raped, who's just shot and killed William Carter defending herself, if she's okay being on TV. They just come over and start filming everything that's going on. And what happens next was a rush to judgment in this case. The police show up, they collect evidence. They're not as meticulous as I think they should have been. She was justified in defending herself, she was in fear for her life, and she's not guilty.
During the second day of the trial, Detective Benton took the stand, reiterating her belief that there was no evidence of a struggle at the crime scene.
Did you observe any forced entry into the home?
No, I did not.
Were there any injuries to her face?
No, there were not.
Was her bra torn in any way?
No, it was not.
Did you look for signs of a struggle?
I was unable to find that there were any signs of a struggle.
However, the defense countered this statement, presenting evidence suggesting that there were indeed a few signs of struggle within the house.
And we can see the lamp on top of the nightstand, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Fair to say this lamp has been knocked over, right?
Yes.
And we also see the sound machine hanging down between the nightstand and the bed, right?
Correct.
During the questioning about the murder weapon, Detective Benton's testimony brought up a pivotal moment in the trial.
What type of firearm was it?
It was a .40 caliber semi-automatic.
Benton stated her belief that the gun could hold 12 bullets. However, 9 shell casings were found at the scene, and the gun still had 4 bullets left in it, totaling 13 bullets. Benton concluded that Victoria must have reloaded the gun during the incident, a detail she had previously shared with the cameras.
The gun doesn't hold 13. For some reason, this girl, she did a tactical reload.
In reality, the gun had a capacity of 13 bullets from the start. This revelation was crucial because, according to Benton's theory, Victoria reloading the firearm would imply premeditation, undermining her claim of self-defense. Despite Palmer's strong criticism of this error, Detective Benton maintained that this mistake did not alter the overall conclusion of the case.
You recognize now that the maximum capacity of this weapon is 13, right?
No, I realize that.
You didn't write that in your report?
No, I did not.
Weren't you wrong about the reloading?
No, I was not.
At this moment, you have no evidence she reloaded.
No.
You just can't say that you made a mistake.
I don't believe I did.
The prosecution sought to depict Victoria as a manipulative individual who used her physical appeal to entice men and manipulate them into fulfilling her desires. To bolster their argument, they called Jeremy Fordham to the stand, a former acquaintance of Victoria's, to whom she had previously sent explicit pictures.
You're saying that the defendant never sent you pictures of her?
No, I didn't think so.
Additionally, County Police Lieutenant Robbie Ray testified that he had engaged in flirtatious text exchanges with Victoria following his assistance with a legal matter she had.
You said,
and you won't need to service me for a little help.
And what was that in reference to?
She stated that William Carter expected her to service him.
Next up on the witness stand was Rick Price, the same deputy who had given her the gun in the first place.
She told me that her ex had beaten her and she needed a protective order. I could see the bruises on her arms. I could also see that she had the outline of black eyes.
When asked about his relationship with Victoria, Price's response was cryptic.
I was interested in Victoria, but we never developed past just good friends.
Did you ever have sexual relations with her then?
No.
Did you ever tell anyone that you did?
I've told people all sorts of things that had nothing to do with reality.
It's worth noting that Price was the first person Victoria contacted after the shooting, even before calling 911. This raised suspicions about Victoria's influence over men. Adding to the intrigue, Price was terminated from his previous job just 5 days after William Carter's murder, reportedly due to his lack of cooperation with the investigation. The prosecution contended that Victoria deliberately led William to his demise that fateful night. They also argued that Victoria's multiple shots at William were excessive and constituted overkill.
She finishes him off from behind, and the final shot is to his head.
In contrast, the defense asserted that Victoria acted out of fear for her life when William unexpectedly showed up at her house and assaulted her.
Will Carter is on top of Victoria Rickman, raping her, and she gets the gun out and hits him.
Palmer also played Victoria's emotional 911 call, suggesting that it reflected genuine fear and helplessness.
I begged him not to hurt me. I just want him to be okay. He's not. There's just blood everywhere.
According to the defense, Victoria felt utterly defenseless during the assault by William, leading her to use the weapon in a desperate attempt to protect herself.
Imagine how powerless she felt when William Carter, who was taller than her, heavier than her, and stronger than her, was her.
However, the prosecution alleged that in the past, Victoria had made similar accusations against some people, and had also threatened to make false allegations against a few others. To reinforce this argument, they called William Plunkett, Victoria's former roommate, to the witness stand. Plunkett testified that Victoria had threatened him when he attempted to evict her from his residence.
She told me that if I called the police officers, she would tell them that I tried to beat her and tried to rape her.
The defense also called Victoria's friends to the stand, who testified to seeing bruises on Victoria's body on previous occasions.
The bruising it was kind of, almost looked like fingerprints on the side.
I've seen bruises on her arm. I've seen a black eye. I have seen a mark above her eye, right about here.
And where did she have the bruises on her body?
On the wrists and her arms, and the second occasion on the throat.
Victoria's friend Brittany recalled an incident where she witnessed Victoria receiving an angry phone call from William just months before the murder.
He was very angry and just yelling and screaming. I could hear bits and pieces of the conversation because he was screaming so loudly.
What was Miss Rickman's demeanor after that?
It completely changed. Her whole attitude, her face, facial expressions changed, just like she's seen a ghost.
Additionally, the defense presented William's psychiatrist, Dr. John Lockridge, who made a startling revelation. He stated that just 3 days before his death, William reported experiencing delusions.
He said he thought he was famous, he was on TV, he was talking to and through the TV.
Lockridge also testified that William had been prescribed an antidepressant to aid his sleep. However, because Detective Benton had failed to request a toxicology report, it remained unknown what drugs William had in his system on the night of his murder, and whether they could have influenced his mental state. The defense claimed that on the night William Carter died, he stormed into Victoria's house in a fit of jealousy after catching her chatting with another guy on the phone earlier that day.
He is angry at her. That's how he was feeling that night. He was lashing out at her.
Defense attorney Palmer even read out furious texts William had sent to Victoria just hours before his death.
You're sad, scary, and a horrible person who I tried and continue to try to love and respect, but it's impossible. You're vicious and horrible to me, and all you want to do is blame me.
While the defense had some valid points, the prosecution came prepared with their own ammunition, dropping a few bombshells as the trial unfolded. It came to light that just months before the trial began, Detective Kevin Leonpacker cracked the code on one of Victoria's cell phones, unearthing a treasure trove of information.
And came across a piece of paper that said phone code, and it had a 4-digit code on it. And the investigator punched it into the phone, and poof, it opened right up.
The phone yielded over 66,000 texts, totaling some 4,000 pages of messages sent and received by Victoria. This wealth of data helped investigators piece together a timeline of events on the night of September 13, 2013. Earlier that evening, Victoria informed Andrew Scarr, her lifelong friend and the owner of the house where she was staying, that she wanted to be alone and asked him to stay at his mother's house. After he departed, Victoria spoke with William on the phone. Although the contents of their conversation remained unknown, it was determined that William showed up at the house sometime after midnight. Detectives also discovered a series of photos in Victoria's possession documenting her bruises, all taken just a day before the murder occurred.
I looked at the metadata on the photos to see when were these photos taken, and that's when I found they were 24 hours before the murder ever occurred. This is her whole defense. This is her whole assertion of self-defense, of justification for shooting and killing Will. And those bruises existed before he ever showed up at her house that night.
There was some evidence to indicate that maybe the injuries she actually had 24 hours before. Isn't that really damaging for your case?
Not at all, not really damaging. She had other bruises that were notated, on her body in the medical records.
Leonpacker also disclosed that William's text to Victoria displayed his fury over her contacting his ex-wife. William had even texted Victoria, indicating his decision to end their relationship. Leonpacker read one of these texts aloud during the court proceedings.
You are too dangerous to be around. Never contact me or the mother of my child again.
In one of these messages, William also mentioned his intention to pursue criminal charges against Victoria for the May 2013 incident. The prosecution speculated that Victoria may have been concerned that an assault conviction would impact her custody rights regarding her son. Right after this, Victoria began sending increasingly desperate texts to her friend, Deputy Sheriff Rick Price, expressing her apprehensions about William. However, the defense countered by highlighting how around this same time, William referred to Victoria as the love of his life and expressed a desire to reconcile their relationship. But the cell phone didn't just contain text and photos. It also held a video that served as a startling piece of evidence.
Go, Tori.
Do it.
Go.
Do it.
I don't want to do anything but get you out of here, dude.
As it turned out, in May 2013, when Victoria allegedly showed up unannounced at William's house and refused to leave, she had recorded a video of their heated altercation on her own cell phone. This footage depicted Victoria attempting to re-enter William's home mere moments after alleging she had been assaulted by him.
Why are you naked? Who were you on the phone with?
We know one thing for sure. He wasn't naked because he raped her, because why would she have to ask that question?
The prosecution presented the entirety of the 60-second video, arguing that it did not depict the interaction one would expect between a woman who had just been assaulted and the alleged perpetrator.
You just showed up at my house, and I told you not to be here.
I did not. You told me to come here.
Tori, I didn't tell you to be here. Get out of here, dude. I'm scared of you. You terrify me. You're already doing this. Get out of here.
Why are you acting like that? Right now, open the door. You is upstairs.
No, it's not.
All my stuff
There's
is upstairs.
nothing upstairs. All you are is a toxic web of lies. Stop it.
Stop.
Get off of me.
Stop.
I'm not letting you in my house.
If you do this,
I'm going to call the police.
Do it.
By showcasing this video, the prosecution sought to undermine Victoria's declaration that William had assaulted her on the night of his murder, casting doubt on the credibility of her self-defense claim.
That's one of the things that you heard from the beginning from Will's mouth himself. You are a toxic web of lies.
As the 2-week trial drew to a close, both sides delivered impassioned closing statements. Prosecutor Sheila Ross pulled no punches, asserting that Victoria was not a victim of abuse, but rather a cold, calculated murderer.
She finished him off with a shot to the head. That is cold-blooded murder. And if he in fact was her and she shot him, good riddance. The world could use one less.
Defense attorney Amanda Palmer, however, remained steadfast in her argument, insisting that Victoria acted in self-defense out of fear for her life. She emphasized that Victoria couldn't have planned the events as she didn't know William was coming over.
Victoria Rickman is not guilty. There is zero proof that Victoria Rickman invited Will Carter to her house.
Palmer concluded her statement by once again criticizing Detective Summer Benton's handling of the investigation.
She wanted to know what's the capacity of the gun, and she got it wrong. She was trying to make good TV, and she didn't want to do anything or take any steps in her investigation that would contradict her theory that Victoria Rickman was guilty.
On September 1st, 2017, after less than an hour of deliberation, the jury reached a guilty verdict.
Count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Victoria Rickman, guilty.
And sure enough, it was justice for those seeking closure for William Carter.
I think that their verdict, the swiftness in which they rendered their verdict, speaks for itself.
When the verdict was read, there was a huge rainbow that came over Atlanta. To me, that was Will. He was finally at peace.
A month later, on October 5th, 2017, 34-year-old Victoria returned to court for her sentencing hearing. This time, Victoria, who had chosen not to testify during the trial, addressed the court, hoping for leniency.
I'm a mother who has been stolen from her son's life. I'm a battered woman. I am a victim who continues to suffer the nightmares and symptoms of PTSD caused from being forced to defend myself in years of abuse. So I ask you, Your Honor, return me to my son and my life. Give me back my voice and my dignity.
Yet she offered no apology to William's family, and in return, Judge J.P. Boulay offered no mercy, sentencing her to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
This court sentences you to life without the possibility of parole.
In an exclusive phone interview from prison with Crime Watch Daily after her sentencing, Victoria slammed the justice system.
It's a complete slap in the face to me as a domestic violence survivor and a disgrace to all battered women, sexual assault, and domestic violence victims that now the system can actually use my case as a tool to re-violate the real victims and their rights.
She insisted that she was no murdering seductress, as the media labeled her.
There are no words to describe how it feels to be labeled as something you're not. All this slander and lies about me is beyond devastating. This entire botch case was solely based on fabricated assumptions created for fame and publicity by defaming my character, maliciously spinning anything, everything, into something it wasn't.
She didn't shy away from expressing disdain for the decisions made by the jury and judge.
I've always told the truth of the abuse I've endured. My stories never changed. I think they didn't take anything into consideration or put themselves in my shoes even.
Furthermore, Victoria affirmed her determination to continue fighting for a new trial. On October 12, 2017, Victoria made a legal maneuver, filing a motion for a new trial, citing claims of ineffective counsel during her initial trial. However, following a hearing, the trial court rejected her motion on June 14, 2019. Undeterred, Victoria pursued an appeal, but her efforts were met with disappointment when the Supreme Court denied her appeal on June 16, 2020. As per prison records, Victoria remains incarcerated at Pulaski State Prison in Hawkinsville, Georgia, with little prospect of freedom anytime soon. Reflecting on the tragedy, William Carter's mother expressed profound grief, acknowledging the deep impact of William's death on all who knew him. However, she lamented the most significant loss was felt by William's daughter, whose life was forever altered by the untimely death of her father.
She's a good student. She's got a beautiful heart. Never see her graduate and never, be at her wedding. But his memories is what's important. And that's what I want to be able to carry on and be grateful that I had this young man in my life.
My whole family shot me too.
What's the address?
Now.
Okay, listen.
I'm dying. I'm shot right now. My family's dead.
Who did it?
Someone came in. There's someone here with a gun. I don't know if you believe me. You need to come now.
What you just heard was a desperate call from a 16-year-old boy pleading for his family's life. Just after the call ended, further attempts to reach him proved to be impossible. Later on, what the Kitsap rescue team found was a horrifying and disturbing scene. The home was found burning with 3 burnt bodies, a woman and 2 boys. However, one person was missing from the scene: John Derek Careaga, the father. The absence of the father makes it extremely suspicious, hinting at the possibility of him being involved in curating this gruesome scene. This chilling incident unfolded within the serene landscapes of Kitsap County, leaving the community shaken and searching for answers. The Careaga family, comprising of 43-year-old John Derek Johnny Careaga, 37-year-old Crystal Lynn Careaga, and their 2 teenagers, 16-year-old Jonathan Felipe Higgins and 16-year-old Hunter Evan Shop, lived together in Kitsap County, Washington. John and Crystal tied the knot in 2009, blending their families with the 2 teenagers coming from previous relationships. However, their happiness didn't last long, and their 8 years together as a family were about to come to an end when an unexpected visitor changed everything. January 27, 2017 was just another typical Friday in Kitsap County, Washington. As evening came down, the Careaga family gathered in their home on West Tenino Drive, a charming single-story ranch house. Crystal reportedly had some friends over at the residence. Meanwhile, Johnny received a phone call while at the house and went out to meet someone, telling the family that he would return home shortly. Johnny later returned to the premises but did not enter the house. Like any ordinary family, they spent the night snacking, indulging in late-night activities such as scrolling through their phones or watching TV. However, the tranquility of the evening was shattered when on that fateful Friday night, dispatchers at Kitsap County received a harrowing 911 call from 16-year-old Hunter Shop.
Kitsap 911 reporting.
My whole family shot me too.
What's the address?
Now.
Okay,
I'm
listen.
dying. I'm shot right now. My family's dead.
Who did it?
Someone came in. There's someone here with a gun. I don't know if you need to come now.
How many people?
I don't know, bro. Just fucking come, yo.
Where are you shot?
Come, man.
Where are you shot?
I'm shot, bro. I don't know where I'm.
In a desperate plea, he urged authorities to rush to their location. By the time the rescue team arrived, a grim scene awaited them at the Careaga residence. The whole family, including Hunter Shop, had been shot and killed within the confines of their home, which was subsequently set in flames. On Sunday morning, January 29, 2017, the community woke up to a chilling headline. 3 people found dead in Kitsap County home after fire. The news sent shockwaves through the area, with residents grappling to make sense of the tragedy that had unfolded. The newspapers had this wrong headline: "Homeowner Missing." This added another layer of concern and uncertainty to the already disturbing situation. According to the initial reports, the victims, 2 teenagers and a woman, had been discovered inside a home engulfed in flames. Authorities confirmed that the deaths were classified as homicides, leaving the community reeling from the shock of such a violent and senseless crime. It was confirmed that the crime had taken place the previous Friday night, with no sign of the homeowner John. Concerned authorities urged the public to remain vigilant and report any sightings of Careaga or his truck, a brown 2005 Ford F-150. Despite being labeled as a missing person, suspicions began to swirl around John, with some suspecting he may have been involved in the heinous crime. Now, the press played a pivotal role in shaping public perception, with headlines fueling speculation and uncertainty. The mention of "someone's here with a gun" only added to the air of suspicion surrounding Careaga. However, it soon became apparent that the media had made a grave error in reporting the survival of 16-year-old Hunter Shop, who had made the distressing 911 call before tragically succumbing to his injuries. As authorities continued their investigation, some surprising details emerged, shedding light on the cruelty of the crime. Shell casings, predominantly 9mm, were discovered on the back deck, and more than $50,000 was found in cash hidden in a strongbox in the main bedroom, along with another $7,000 in a money bag. Throughout the next few days, law enforcement spared no effort in their search for Johnny Careaga and his truck, mobilizing every available resource in a desperate bid for clues. Eventually, a crucial development rocked the ongoing investigation: the discovery of John Careaga's truck. The burnt wreckage, containing the lifeless body of Johnny, was found on a remote road in North Mason County. The discovery was made by a passerby walking in the area, prompting immediate action from authorities. The announcement from the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office sought assistance from residents in the area, urging anyone with information to come forward.
We know that there's people that have held back information. I understand that it's a grisly crime and that a lot of people have fear, loyalty, maybe even some disbelief that these subjects were involved. But we're just asking that those people come forward now and help us. I'm gonna just say that this could be only our first round of arrests.
Crime scene investigators carefully searched the area, scouring for clues that might shed light on the circumstances surrounding John's death. Their efforts brought out a crucial piece of evidence: a single latex glove found near the burnt-out truck. Now, this discovery raised questions and fueled speculation, prompting authorities to appeal to residents and businesses with security cameras for any footage that might provide valuable insights into the case. Sheriff's Detective Lieutenant Earl Smith emphasized the importance of video evidence, urging those with relevant footage to cooperate with law enforcement. The appeal was met with a swift response from the community, with individuals stepping forward to offer assistance in any way they could. Despite the collaborative spirit permeating the investigation, details surrounding the circumstances of John's death remain shrouded in mystery. According to detectives, the road leading to the tree farm, marked by a gate, showed signs of forceful entry, with the gate visibly damaged. It appeared as though Johnny's truck had rammed through the gate, which was a stark indication of some level of struggle. Amidst the chaos and uncertainty, the memory of Hunter's shop weighed heavily on the minds of many. Principal Megan Swiecki of North Kitsap High School delivered the somber news, paying tribute to Hunter's memory and urging those who knew him to cherish the moments they shared. As the community mourned the loss of the Careaga family, a sense of hope emerged. The appointment of Detective Elizabeth Lisa Gundrum in this case. With a major lack of definitive evidence and any eyewitnesses, investigators turned to digging to the lives of the victims. As the investigators started to, they uncovered a series of puzzling yet potential motives. These were basically speculations about the family's business ventures and financial dealings, fueling theories of possible illicit activities and criminal connections. The first thing, the disturbing 911 call made by one of the victims struck a question. Why didn't Hunter mention anything about the fire, or was he confused? This raised suspicions about the timing and motives behind the arson, adding another layer of complexity to an already confusing investigation. As the investigation progressed, authorities faced a ton of questions and uncertainties. The motive behind the attack, the identity of the person or persons, and the circumstances surrounding John Careaga's abduction remain shrouded. Amidst the confusion and despair, one question loomed larger than all others. Why? Months passed with little progress. However, in February 2017, a breakthrough occurred when surveillance footage captured John Careaga at a local grocery store buying cigarettes, seemingly behaving normally in the hours leading up to his disappearance. While this provided some insight into his whereabouts, it failed to yield any significant leads. Then, in June 2017, authorities released a photo of a person of interest captured on surveillance footage at a Target store just days before the murders. The image showed an individual entering the store, raising suspicions about their potential involvement in the crime. This marked the first communication from authorities in months, highlighting the urgency of the investigation. Sheriff Gary Simpson emphasized the need for public assistance, confirming that more than one person was involved in the meticulously planned murders. This added a new layer of complexity to the case, prompting hints about the suspect's motives and connections to the victims. The request for information on the unknown suspect, seen at Target 12 days before the murders, raised questions about their possible purchases and their relevance to the crime. Could items bought at the store be linked to the murders, such as firearms or materials found at the crime scene? In September 2017, the investigation progressed with the identification of a person of interest, Danny Kelly Jr. Danny was a longtime friend of Johnny's, even turned out to be Johnny's best man at the time of his wedding.
Hunter called him uncle, so to
I
be able
didn't know
to do
that.
that.
Yeah, Danny Kelly was his best man at his first wedding. Them kids called him uncle when they were babies. Uncle Danny.
Now, reports suggested a troubling encounter between Danny and his estranged mother, who accused him of misconduct. The case report was that he had repeatedly groped and propositioned his mother and was arrested on behalf of this case. Besides, his alleged involvement in the Careaga case raised eyebrows, but authorities clarified that he had not been officially charged in connection with the homicides. Now the year of 2017 drew to a close, marking the Careaga family murders as the most significant local news story of the year. The community's deep-seated feelings were further pushed by an anonymous donor who chose to contribute $16,000 to Crime Stoppers, bolstering the reward fund to $20,000. Despite the dropped charges against Danny J. Kelly Jr. for assaulting his mother, investigators remained committed to pursuing leads in the case. On January 11, 2018, authorities released an extended version of Hunter Shop's chilling 911 call, as the investigators weren't letting down on the case. They came to notice that Danny was wearing Bandito's motorcycle club attire in the video, and the investigators appealed to members of the motorcycle club for information. Now, this marked a significant development, as investigators publicly identified Danny Kelly Jr. as a person of interest, and highlighted his association with the Bandidos Motorcycle Club. For those who aren't aware, the Bandidos Motorcycle Club is widely recognized as a motorcycle gang by law enforcement and intelligence agencies across multiple countries. Although the club has denied allegations of being a criminal organization, several members have been convicted of engaging in illegal activities. It has a substantial presence in Washington state and has been the target of various law enforcement operations over the years. According to the Department of Justice, Bandidos members have been heavily involved in methamphetamine trafficking and various violent crimes in Washington. Further scrutiny focused on surveillance footage showing Johnny Careaga meeting someone at a local grocery store shortly before the murders. In January of 2020, authorities once again pressed the importance of their belief that members of the Bandidos Motorcycle Club were directly involved in the Careaga family murders. They appealed to the biker community for any information that could aid in the investigation. However, since then, there had been little to no progress in the case, and it stayed the same for nearly 5 years. On further digging, detectives found out that Johnny had been involved in the transportation and distribution of cocaine for a significant period. He made numerous trips to California, where he reportedly acquired kilos of cocaine to distribute in Kitsap County. This involvement led him to interact with members of the Bandidos Motorcycle Club, particularly Robert James Watson, the leader of the local Bandidos chapter, to whom one of Johnny's close associates at the time, Danny, began directly selling cocaine. Yes, the initial suspect, Danny J. Kelly Jr. Despite their close relationship, a falling out occurred before the murders, allegedly over money stolen by Danny. As Johnny went into distribution in Kitsap County, he came into contact with other Bandidos Motorcycle Club members who were in process of joining the club. Now the detectives used cell phone tracking to show the locations of Careaga and the suspects before, during, and after the killings. Danny Kelly Jr. had bought a prepaid mobile burner phone at the Silverdale Target, which he used extensively to communicate with John Careaga for the 10 days leading up to the killings. However, communication stopped afterward, even though the phone didn't expire until April 2017. Detectives obtained a search warrant in January 2020 for Robert Watson's cell phone when members of the Bandidos were suspected in the homicides. Text messages between Danny and Robert Watson, including one on January 23, 2020, were retrieved, with Danny commenting on the weather saying, "A little fucking humid today." On the night of the murders, the Careaga family had friends over, but Johnny abruptly left after receiving a phone call. Surveillance footage captured him briefly parked next to another vehicle in a nearby grocery store parking lot before driving off. Meanwhile, the friends departed from the Careaga home. Before Johnny could return, 3 men arrived and began shooting. Crystal, Johnny's wife, was reportedly the first victim, followed by her son Jonathan Higgins, and then Johnny's son, Hunter Shop, who was shot in the driveway. Crystal was shot in the head, and Jonathan Higgins, who came out of his room to check on the commotion, was as well. Hunter Shop was carrying a pizza into the home when he was ambushed by at least one gunman. It appeared, based on the evidence, that he surprised the killer. A first shot missed, but he was struck by 2 subsequent shots, and Shop was left for dead. But he was still alive when he made the 911 call. The call abruptly ended, suggesting the gunman interfered with or destroyed the phone before fatally shooting Hunter. The assailants then set fires at different ends of the home using fire starter logs and accelerants, and they threw rocks through the windows to fuel the blaze. Now subsequently, the suspects exhibited suspicious behavior and were linked to the crime through this evidence. Danny was seen by a witness driving Johnny's truck away from the crime scene. Surveillance footage from a local Target showed Danny purchasing a prepaid phone days before the murders, which he reportedly used to communicate extensively with Johnny.
Which is, commonly used in criminal activity. And that burner phone was only used to communicate with Johnny for the 12 days leading up to his murder. So I knew that there was obviously, that Mr. Kelly had involvement
Notably, the phone's activity ceased shortly before the killings. Watson visited a club member's house missing his pants and claimed he had fought with a homeless black man. Later that evening, Watson called 911 to report his truck had been broken into several days earlier, and a loaded Glock handgun and a second loaded magazine were stolen. Watson, who worked for Kitsap County Public Works, stopped going to work and was eventually fired in September 2017. Detectives found that about $303,000 was deposited into his accounts that year, with numerous cash deposits that couldn't be traced. Johnny Careaga had reportedly hidden $200,000 under his home, but it was never found. Also, a neighbor heard gunshots on the night of the homicide and saw Careaga's truck speeding down Tenino Drive. The neighbor identified the driver as Danny, whom he knew from when Danny's family lived in the same house. Following the truck was a silver car, almost bumper to bumper. Detectives noted that Danny and John Careaga had a strong dislike for each other, making Danny's presence at Careaga's house or driving his truck suspicious. Less than a week after detectives released video of Careaga's truck and the unidentified car at the Camp Union grocery, Robert's brother Johnny Watson's car, a 2006 Mercedes, was found stripped and dumped in the Puyallup River. The vehicle was missing its plates and had not been reported stolen. However, later, Robert and his brother paid $1,500 to retrieve the car. Now there was a question. Why did he only think to report it then, the day after a quadruple murder nearby? Johnny Watson, the third individual, was believed to be the driver of the second vehicle seen in the grocery store parking lot on the night of the murders. And furthermore, the DNA from one of the rocks at the crime scene matched perfectly with his. Finally, on June 6, 2022, a significant development shook the community as 3 men were formally charged in connection with the quadruple murder of the Careaga family. This marked a crucial moment in the long-standing investigation that had gripped the region for years. The arrest operation, meticulously planned over several weeks, involved approximately 70 police officers spanning multiple counties. The suspects, identified as 43-year-old Danny J. Kelly Jr., 49-year-old Johnny James Watson, and 50-year-old Robert James Watson, were apprehended in different locations across the state. Robert Watson was caught in between traffic at Gig Harbor. Johnny Watson and Danny were arrested about an hour later in their apartments in Bremerton. Following their arrests, the 3 men were booked into local jails and charged with a total of 16 felonies each. These charges ranged from first-degree aggravated murder, first-degree murder, first-degree arson, to first-degree burglary. Bail for each defendant was set at a staggering $20 million. The suspects appeared in court the following morning to enter their pleas, with each pleading not guilty to the alleged felony charges. The judge ordered that they be held without bail and imposed strict conditions, prohibiting them from possessing firearms, alcohol, or drugs unless prescribed. Additionally, the defendants were forbidden from having any contact with each other as mandated by the court. In response to the Careaga family murders, investigators had formed a specialized task force dedicated to unraveling the complexities of the quadruple homicide. This collaborative effort underscored the gravity of the case and the determination of law enforcement to bring the perpetrators to justice. The community awaited further developments in the legal proceedings, hoping that the arrests would mark a significant step towards closure for the families affected by the tragic loss of the Careaga family. But even in this darkness, there's a glimmer of hope as people come together to remember them. The arrest of the 3 suspects in the Careaga family murder case was a moment long awaited by those touched by the tragedy. For years, Carly Scott, the mother of Hunter Scott, had pleaded for justice, and finally, her prayers were answered. She's made so many emotional pleas over the years, just asking for someone to step forward. And it worked. The detectives got tips from the public that helped crack the case.
I'm happy that there's going to be some answers. I'm happy that, we've been waiting over 5 years for arrests to be made, so this is a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah.
A huge step.
The suspects, accused of killing an entire family, were brought before a Kitsap County judge, visibly restrained and escorted into court. Their alleged crimes, fueled by greed, and disrespect, left a deep scar on the community. During the trial, emotions ran high as family members faced the accused, expressing their desire for justice.
16-year-olds were taken over greed and something so ugly. They were so pure and they were so loving, and to know that their lives were taken over something so stupid is just disgusting.
The suspects exuded an unsettling aura, reflecting on the severity of their actions. Despite the pain and heartache, the arrests provided a sense of relief and closure to the victims' loved ones. And it was very much visible around the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office as family gathered to hug detectives and each other, anxious right after the arrest. As we wrap up today's episode, we invite you to share your thoughts on this disturbing case. Your reflections are valuable to us. If you have suggestions for other stories, please feel free to share them in the comments below. Your engagement supports our mission to uncover more compelling cases. Stay tuned for more thought-provoking true stories. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Mysterious Hook for similar stories. Let's continue to illuminate stories that call our attention together.
Corona 911, what's the address of your emergency?
We heard gunshots. I'm at Costco on McKinley. There was gunshots. Two people are down. There were shots fired.
The calls you just heard were recorded on June 14, 2019, and originated from a Costco superstore in Corona, California. The recording captured a chaotic situation unfolding around 7:30 p.m., with reports of shots being fired inside the store. As the situation escalated, police officers arrived at the scene with backup. Upon entering the store, they found a 32-year-old LAPD officer, Salvador Sanchez, lying on the floor. This footage might lead you to believe the 32-year-old man on the floor was simply a victim or an innocent bystander. However, the truth behind this shocking incident is far more complex.
I thought I got shot. I still feel pain on the side of my head.
The officer, Salvador Sanchez, was actually the one who fired the gunshots. Not just once or twice, but a staggering 10 times. Tragically, these shots resulted in the injury of a family of 3, a son, his mother, and his father.
Officer Sanchez, not to shoot twice.
I begged and told him not to shoot. I said we have no guns and my son is sick. He still shot.
June 14, 2019, around 7:30 p.m. at the Costco Wholesale in Corona, California. The French family, consisting of 32-year-old Kenneth French, his mother Paula French, and his father Russell French, were just going about their usual shopping routine. As they looked around the aisles, they came across a food sample table offering sausages. At the same table stood off-duty LAPD officer Salvador Sanchez. He was holding his 8-month-old son Noah and seemed to be a caring father interacting with his child. For reasons unknown, Kenneth French suddenly attacked Officer Sanchez. It's unclear the exact nature of the attack, but it could be described as a push, slap, punch, or some other kind of physical contact. This unexpected act caused the officer to lose his balance and fall to the ground, dropping his baby and possibly hitting his head in the process. Upon arriving at the scene, officers found Officer Sanchez visibly shaken and disoriented. Sanchez claimed he suffered a concussion from the fall, which left him disoriented and scared. In this state, he says he pulled out his gun, wanting to protect himself and his young son Noah, whom he had dropped during the fall. He admitted to firing the gun, but maintained it was an accidental discharge due to his disoriented and scared state. The sound of gunfire sent shockwaves through the store. Panic erupted as people scattered in fear, some running for the exits to escape the danger, others, with a sense of urgency, dialed 911 for help.
Corona 911, what's the address of your emergency?
We heard gunshots. I'm at Costco on McKinley. There was gunshots. Two people are down. There were shots fired.
During the chaos, while some took shelter, a few brave people went towards the sound of the shots to see if anyone was hurt. It was during this time when they found Officer Sanchez lying on the ground. Officer Sanchez also claimed that when he regained some awareness, he saw Kenneth holding a small black pistol, similar to an LCP Ruger 380 pistol.
I thought I saw a black handgun. As I came over here, the deceased right there, we couldn't find the black handgun.
The police arrived quickly after the shooting. Officer Sanchez told them he thought he'd been shot in the head and saw a gun before getting knocked down. One customer, who had been shopping elsewhere in the store, ran towards the commotion after the shot stopped. He saw Officer Sanchez pointing toward Kenneth French, who was also injured but found no gun near him. The police, too, were not able to find any witnesses who saw Kenneth, his mother Paula, or his father Russell with a gun. They also couldn't find any evidence, like a dropped weapon, near where the family was shot to suggest they had one. Once everyone was safely evacuated from the store, the police took extra precautions to check everywhere for possible dangers. They even used special drone cameras to look on top of cabinets and freezers where someone might have hidden something. After a thorough investigation, it became clear there was only one gun involved in the entire incident: the handgun carried by LAPD officer Salvador Sanchez. No other weapon was ever found. Officer Sanchez didn't seem to have any outward injuries after the shooting, but he still asked to go to the hospital. There, he told the doctors he thought he passed out after hitting his head on the floor. Based on this, they diagnosed him with a concussion, which is a kind of brain injury that can cause dizziness and confusion. However, the police reports didn't say he had any clear injuries like cuts or bruises, even later on. Convinced there was more to the story than met the eye, the detectives set their sights on uncovering the family's past, believing it held the key to a complete understanding. The French family, originally from Kolkata, India, had built a life in California. Kenneth, 32, lived with his parents Russell and Paola, who had been married since 1986. They were a close-knit family who had lived in Canada and the UK before settling in Riverside. The couple raised their son Kenneth with a gentle soul and a warm smile. Kenneth, although 32 years old, had the mental capacity of a teenager due to a combination of schizophrenia and an intellectual disability. Schizophrenia is a complex mental illness that can affect a person's thoughts, emotions, and behavior. People with schizophrenia may experience hallucinations, which are seeing or hearing things that aren't there, and delusions, which are false beliefs held despite evidence to the contrary. It can be a challenging condition to manage, and Kenneth's family was dedicated to giving him the best possible care. But Kenneth's condition had been worsening over time, and he was nonverbal at the time of the incident. He had upcoming appointments to address recent concerns about fluid in his brain and the possible impact of stopping his medication due to other health issues. However, the circumstances surrounding the incident raised questions about whether Kenneth's situation could have played a role in the tragedy. To understand the full picture, it's crucial to hear from those closest to Kenneth, his parents. In the aftermath of the shooting, Kenneth's mother told responding officers that her son had hit the officer at the sample stand. However, she was understandably traumatized, and her account later changed, saying it was more of a slap. Meanwhile, Officer Sanchez wasn't arrested and went home while authorities investigated. He was initially given desk duty and then placed on paid leave. In light of the ongoing investigation, Officer Sanchez was given a desk assignment until further notice. Unfortunately, the store's security footage did little to shed light on the situation. The camera was far away and blocked by merchandise, so it didn't capture the initial interaction between Kenneth and the officer. It only showed Kenneth wearing a striped shirt being pushed away from the stand by his father. Paola briefly appears gesturing towards the officer before moving away. The footage then shows the French family backing away just before the officer fired. Authorities released this footage as the only visual evidence they had from the store. They emphasized that there was no earlier footage available and no other cameras captured the incident. This was especially shocking for a crowded store like Costco, with people walking in various directions, browsing through aisles, and stopping by sample stands. With only one camera and its limited view, large sections of the store remain unseen. While the footage provided a frustratingly limited window into the event, investigators weren't ready to give up just yet. Through careful analysis, they managed to get some valuable pieces of information from the grainy frames. They determined that a mere 3.8 seconds passed between Officer Sanchez falling to the ground and opening fire. This incredibly short time frame, barely enough time to blink, raises serious questions about what happened during those critical moments. As previously mentioned, Officer Sanchez fired a total of 10 shots during the chaotic encounter. 4 of them struck Kenneth, 3 bullets ripped through his back, and another pierced his shoulder. His parents, Paola and Russell, were also caught in the line of fire. Paola was wounded in the back, and Russell lost a kidney after being shot in the abdomen. The remaining 4 bullets lodged themselves in display cases, a grim reminder of the senseless violence that erupted in the familiar aisles of Costco. While no one else was physically harmed, the emotional toll was devastating. Russell and Paola spent months in the hospital, enduring surgeries and treatment for their injuries. But for Kenneth, there was no recovery. Witnesses recounted holding his hand, feeling the warmth fade as the 32-year-old man, a man with the mental capacity of a teenager, slipped away. His gentle smile, his struggles, his life, all silenced in a mere 3.8 seconds. The loss of Kenneth on June 14, 2019, a son, a brother, and a friend, cast a deep shadow on his family and the community. His absence left behind a void filled with only the echo of unanswered questions and the weight of unimaginable grief. The French family spent 2 long months in the hospital recovering from their injuries. After being discharged in July 2019, they decided to speak up about their ordeal. They hoped that by sharing their story, they could convince the Riverside County District Attorney's Office to file charges against Officer Sanchez. Facing public pressure and the family's pleas, the District Attorney's Office presented the case to a grand jury in September 2019. However, the jury ultimately decided not to charge Officer Sanchez. This decision was another crushing blow for the French family. Just 1 week after leaving the hospital and finally holding a funeral service for Kenneth, they were forced to confront this new reality. Still deeply grieving and emotionally drained, they held a press conference to express their disappointment.
Family has just taken another blow, and we have lost complete faith in the U.S. justice system.
Salvador Sanchez was clearly in the wrong, as he was not in imminent danger to fire 10 shots at an entire unarmed family.
I begged and told him not to shoot. I said, we have no guns, and my son is sick. He still shot.
They believed the city of Los Angeles, where Officer Sanchez worked, shared the blame for their tragedy. Their lawsuit argued that the city had been negligent in its duty to ensure proper training for its officers. Meanwhile, Officer Sanchez's attorneys were fighting back against the charges.
Believed he had to use deadly force to protect his son and himself, and he fired the amount of shots he believed was necessary.
The attorneys maintained that the officer had acted appropriately. The legal battle didn't end there. While the local district attorney's office decided not to pursue charges, the state stepped in. In August 2021, almost 2 years after the incident, the California Attorney General's office decided to press charges against Officer Sanchez. They accused him of 1 count of manslaughter, which means causing someone's death unintentionally, along with other charges related to using a gun dangerously. If found guilty, he could face up to 30 years in prison.
2 years, gosh, time goes by so fast. He probably thought he was scot-free. I'm all for a charge on him, at least manslaughter, at least do some time.
Although it had been 2 years since the shooting, the public, especially the neighbors, were still waiting for justice to be served. Officer Sanchez's lawyer argued against these charges, claiming they were politically motivated.
Politically motivated program to prosecute police officers.
Despite the earlier setback, the French family's fight for justice continued in the civil trial. This time, they were able to introduce a powerful new piece of evidence. This animated recreation filled in the crucial missing pieces that the grainy store security footage had failed to capture. The animation brought the events of that tragic day to life. It depicted the French family, Paola, and Russell strolling through the aisles. Kenneth, wearing a striped shirt and jeans, walked beside them, seemingly unaware of the encounter. As they approached the sample stand, the animation showed Kenneth reaching out and striking the officer, who was holding his young son. The impact sent the officer tumbling to the ground. The animation then depicted the horrifying moment when all three family members were struck by the officer's gunfire. This visual representation provided a more complete picture of the events leading up to the shooting. In November 2021, a jury in Los Angeles decided in favor of the French family. This means the jury believed the city was at least partly responsible for the tragic events and awarded the family over $17 million in damages. Even though the district attorney's office decided not to press charges, the story didn't end there. The legal battles surrounding the Costco shooting continued for years. On December 27, 2023, a trial was held at Larson Justice Center in Indio to determine whether former Officer Sanchez was criminally responsible for the shooting. Prosecutors argued that he acted unreasonably and created a false narrative about the events, including believing he was shot first. They believe he overreacted and used excessive force. The defense countered by saying Sanchez acted quickly in what he perceived as a life-threatening situation after being hit by Kenneth. While acknowledging the tragedy, they argued it wasn't a crime and that Sanchez had no intention of harming the family. The jury deliberated for about 3 weeks, but ultimately deadlocked, unable to reach a verdict. The judge declared a mistrial. This heartbreaking case paints a picture of tragedy on all sides. Kenneth French, a gentle soul with a mental disability, lost his life in a senseless act of violence. His parents, Paola and Russell, carry the scars of that day, both physical and emotional wounds that may never fully heal. On the other side of the gun, a father and police officer, Salvador Sanchez, acted in what he believed was necessary to protect himself and his young son. His actions that day have undoubtedly haunted him and his family, leaving a stain on his career and reputation. This case leaves us with many unanswered questions and an intense sense of unease. It raises debates about police training, mental health awareness, and the limits of self-defense. Ultimately, it forces us to confront the fragility of life and the devastating consequences of a single moment. What do you think about this case? Did the outcome deliver justice? Was compassion considered? Should Officer Sanchez have been held accountable? Let us know in the comments below. We hope this video offered some insight into this complex and emotional case. Let us know in the comments below what other cases you'd like us to explore. If you found this video informative, please hit the like button and subscribe to Mysterious Hook. Until next time, stay curious.
I need to place a restraining order on somebody.
Were you assaulted in any way?
Yes.
Who is this person to you?
He was my boyfriend. I don't want you guys to go to his house because he said if I call police, he's going to kill me.
On May 31st, 2016, Atlanta was rocked by a disturbing discovery. A naked, lifeless body was found lying on the grass at the Oakland City Park, surrounded by stray dogs. The victim was quickly identified as Bridget Sheil, a 19-year-old hairstylist and model who had recently moved from Georgia. Her body showed signs of a violent attack and had been shot multiple times. Was someone trying to say something by using such lethal ammunition? And if they were, who could it be?
Do the cops still consider you their prime suspect?
I highly doubt that. I highly doubt that I'm the prime suspect.
What could make someone harbor so much hate? Stay tuned as we peel back the layers of this twisted tale, revealing shocking secrets and unexpected turns along the way. Get ready for a wild ride. On the night of May 30th, 2016, Bridget left her house. At around 10:30 p.m., she sent a Snapchat message saying she was too pretty to walk in the grass. A few minutes later, she called a friend, who later stated that she seemed fine, with nothing amiss. Around 1:30 a.m., a man called 911 to report hearing multiple gunshots at the park. Then, just before 7 a.m., Bridget's naked body was found in the park, not by people, but by stray dogs. Although there were no reports of the dogs eating her, they circled the body. A man passing through the park shooed the dogs away, and shortly after, Atlanta homicide detectives arrived at the scene. After the discovery of her body, the police immediately began canvassing the area for witnesses and clues. However, no personal effects were found on or around the victim, leaving investigators with little to go on besides her wounds. Now, the autopsy revealed some troubling details. There wasn't any evidence of violations, but it indicated that some of the gunshots came from a straight-down angle, suggesting that Bridget was already likely on the ground, possibly dead, when she was shot multiple times. The police say it appeared as if Bridget was running away from her killer when she was gunned down. The choice of ammunition, radically invasive projectiles, also known as rip bullets, raised eyebrows. These bullets are designed to fragment upon impact, causing extensive damage. Their use in the crime led investigators to consider whether a message was being sent. As the investigation progressed, Bridget was identified as the victim, thanks in part to one of her tattoos, which barely read her name. Detectives received reports from neighbors who claimed to have seen individuals escorting her through the park around 11:30 p.m. on the night of her murder. Surveillance footage from a Shell gas station in Stone Mountain, Georgia, also confirmed this. It showed Bridget with two black males, who were the last known people to see her alive. One of the men with her looked to be between 20 and 30 years old with a goatee and wearing a white t-shirt. Police said there was no clear description of the other man. Witnesses described Bridget as looking unhappy during this encounter. On the day after these sightings, on June 1, 2016, Atlanta police confirmed that the car seen at the gas station belonged to Bridget. Interestingly, the vehicle was found behind King's Southern Delight restaurant on Red Dan Road in DeKalb County, which is about 2 miles from where she was last seen with the two individuals, and approximately 20 miles from where her body was discovered. Despite the discovery of her car, investigators have not released any information about potential DNA evidence found inside. So who exactly was behind this? And who were those two men? Now, the detectives had to understand Bridget's journey, especially after she moved to Atlanta. She pursued her dream of becoming a model and even landed a role as an Amber Rose lookalike in one of the music videos from Chris Waddle. In short, it seemed like her dreams were coming true. But there was a darker side to her story too. A simple online search revealed something unexpected. Turns out there were ads on Backpage featuring Bridget in revealing outfits, hinting at involvement in escort services. This shocked her friends, who had no idea about this side of Bridget's life. Her grandmother, Beverly Toole, had a theory. She believed that Bridget might not have been acting of her own free will. She suspected that Bridget's boyfriend might have influenced her decisions. So the attention of detectives turned to Bridget's 21-year-old boyfriend, Kevin Kinney. Bridget's friends had a lot to say about Kevin, her boyfriend. He was older, had a history of legal troubles, and there were rumors that he might be involved in a gang. There were even reports suggesting that their relationship was volatile. Just a few months before Bridget's murder, she called 911 to report an assault by Kevin. She told police that Kevin hit her in the face, but decided not to press charges.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
I just need to place a restraining order on somebody.
Were you assaulted in any way?
Yes.
And who is this person to you?
He was my boyfriend.
Okay, hold on.
I don't want you guys to go to his house because he said if I go there, he's going to kill me.
However, just 2 days later, police were called to the same home because Bridget was fighting with another woman, Brittany Aloka, who turned out to be the mother of Kevin's child. It seemed like there was a complicated love triangle involving Bridget, Kevin, and Brittany. Before her death, Bridget was living with Kevin and Brittany, which likely contributed to the domestic disputes. A friend of Bridget's revealed that there might have been another major source of tension: the fact that Bridget was pregnant. She was afraid and hesitant to tell Kevin about the pregnancy, indicating it was a recent development, just weeks before her tragic death. But someone like Kevin couldn't be able to live with his current girlfriend and his child's mother without some friction between everyone involved.
I spoke to her the day before she was murdered. I had sent her money because she needed a place to stay. She wanted to not stay with Kevin and go stay in a motel I wanted her to be able to do that.
Now, the police took Kevin and Brittany in for interrogation, but they haven't been named as suspects and no charges were filed. Brittany declined to comment, focusing on being a mother. Kevin claimed he was cleared as a suspect after the interrogation, surprising many. The police, however, remained silent about their investigation. Kevin denied being a suspect and claimed he was cleared by the police. He seemed surprised by the allegations against him. He mentioned a unique living situation with Bridget and Brittany living together. There were multiple incidents of domestic disputes involving the three of them. However, Kevin denied these allegations. He denied knowing about Bridget's involvement in the escort business, claiming he tried to keep her away from it. Kevin stated that he wasn't aware of Bridget's apparent pregnancy and denied discussing it with her, unaware of the fact that the autopsy revealed that she was not pregnant. Kevin expressed frustration, saying he wished he could confront everyone involved. He said that when he came to know about Bridget's death, he found the situation quite dramatic and took a while to respond because he didn't know what to say. He denied any harm towards Bridget and expressed his desire to marry her if she were still alive. Even though he had been cleared by the police, they never explicitly told him so.
Bridget was running away from her killer when she was gunned down at a park near Atlanta. Our Jason Matera talks to Bridget's boyfriend, who says cops questioned him extensively after the murder.
Yeah, she just ended up dead, and I don't get how or why. I don't get what she could have done. Like, I really don't. I can't think of any reason, not even one.
But in the immediate aftermath, police had some ideas, and by his own admission, Bridget's boyfriend, Kevin Kinney, the court's #1 suspect.
Do the cops still consider you their prime suspect?
I highly doubt that. I highly doubt that I'm the prime suspect now, because when they called me back the second time to the precinct, and they were like, everybody thinks you did it. I was like, okay, bro. Yeah, I'm very confident. Like, bro, I know some good lawyers, some of the top 5 lawyers in the U.S. right now, man. I would love to call them. I would love to place this call, bro. And they walked out and they came back and said, you can leave.
The next set of questions that the cops had was his involvement with gangs, to which he strongly denied any affiliation. He admitted to having served time in jail for nonviolent offenses, but insisted he had nothing to do with Bridget's murder. Kevin even said that Bridget had expressed fear for her life before her death, but didn't know who she was afraid of. He also suggested that Bridget may have rejected someone's advances, leading to her murder, but all of these theories had no concrete answers. Unfortunately, with no progress being made, the case went cold for almost 2 years. On May 31st, 2018, 2 years after Bridget's tragic murder, new developments emerged, shedding light on the case that had baffled investigators. According to Atlanta police, surveillance footage captured Bridget's car in a parking lot. In the footage, a woman was seen entering a store and purchasing a Sprite. Now not far from the vehicle, near a fence, authorities discovered a dress. They also recovered a Sprite bottle. The crucial breakthrough came when DNA evidence recovered from Bridget exactly matched the DNA found on the Sprite bottle. This discovery marked a significant step forward in the investigation. But this wasn't the end of the story. As a matter of fact, the investigation into Bridget's murder led authorities to uncover another case involving the disturbing murder of an elderly couple, which happened on October 24th, 2016. Sylvia Watson and her fiancé Samuel White were victims of a horrific crime perpetrated by members of the Roland 20 Street Gang. The suspects, including Christopher Crisco Spencer, forced Watson to drive to multiple ATMs to withdraw money before returning to her apartment. Once there, Spencer and another man, Vernon Vito Corleone Beeman, bound the couple and shot them execution-style in the back of the head. Christopher Spencer was arrested on November 2, 2016, and charged in connection with the murders of Sylvia Watson and Samuel White. Following his conviction, Spencer was incarcerated at Macon State Prison. It was during this time that Spencer's DNA submitted to a database matched DNA found on Bridget's body and the Sprite bottle recovered near her vehicle. This crucial DNA match prompted authorities to secure an arrest warrant for Spencer in connection with Bridget's murder on May 30, 2018. Detective O'Connor, involved in the investigation, explained that prior to Spencer's arrest in the elderly couple's murder, there were very few leads and little information regarding Bridget's case. Surveillance footage from the convenience store showed that the suspects were cautious, having someone else buy the items they needed without leaving the vehicle. This caution made it challenging for investigators to gather evidence initially. However, with Spencer's identification and arrest, a breakthrough finally occurred in Bridget's case. Despite the DNA evidence linking Spencer to Bridget's murder, many questions remain unanswered. It's unclear why Bridget was targeted, and Spencer denies any involvement in her death. Spencer was already facing a life sentence when he was charged for Bridget's case. While Spencer is associated with the Rollin' 20s gang, authorities believe Bridget's murder is unrelated to gang activity. In March 2018, Spencer faced further charges, along with 8 other alleged gang members, in connection with the murder of 2 youths in Jonesboro in 2016. Bridget's grandmother, Beverly Toole, expressed a mix of emotions upon learning about Christopher Spencer's arrest in connection with Bridget's murder.
Oh, I miss her every day. I think of her every day. I just wish she was still here. I think she had a lot of growing up to do, and I wish she'd been given the chance to grow up. I will miss her forever.
While relieved that progress had been made in the case, Beverly remains overwhelmed by unanswered questions. She wonders about the circumstances that led to Bridget's encounter with Spencer, and whether it was a chance meeting or something more sinister. Despite the arrest, Beverly remains uncertain about whether it will bring any solace or closure to the family.
I want to thank all the detectives and all of the police who have worked on her case, and Nefertiti for keeping Bridget's case in the eye of the public, and the police also did a great job of that. And I'd just like to say that we miss her more every day.
Meanwhile, on June 3, 2018, in Sandy Springs, a suburb of Atlanta, friends and family of Bridget gathered to honor her memory and celebrate the impact she had on their lives during her brief time on Earth. The gathering served as a testament to Bridget's vibrant spirit and the profound connections she forged with those around her. In the midst of their grief, Bridget's family faces the practical challenges of arranging her funeral. To alleviate the financial burden, they've set up a GoFundMe account to help cover the costs associated with the funeral arrangements. This gesture of support from friends, family, and the community underscores the outpouring of love and solidarity that surrounds Bridget's family during their difficult times. As we come to the end of Bridget Sheil's story, Bridget's memory will endure, kept alive by the love of her family and friends. The arrest brings a glimmer of hope for closure, but questions remain. How did it happen? Was it a chance encounter or something more sinister? Only time will tell. As we wrap up Bridget's story, comment on your thoughts and the possibilities behind her case. Your thoughts and ideas mean a lot to us, helping us choose more interesting stories to share. Get ready for more fascinating stories that grab our interest and encourage important conversations. Don't forget to tell others by liking, sharing, and subscribing to Mysterious Hook. Let's keep exploring mysteries that spark our imagination.
This is the story of one of the most interesting cases I've been involved in, and it happened 23 years before I'd ever heard of the victim.
February 24th, 1986. The Los Angeles Police Department discovers the lifeless body of 29-year-old Sherri Rasmussen, scarred with severe injuries and tragically sprawled on the floor. Inside the house, the scene was chaotic. Furniture was tossed around, stereo equipment ripped from the walls, and a shattered porcelain vase spoke of the violence inflicted upon Sherri. For detectives, everything points to just one theory: a robbery that had turned deadly. But beneath the surface lay a truth which was the autopsy reports, as they were telling a different story.
The decedent had numerous points of trauma. She had 3 gunshot wounds to the torso, to the front of her. She also had blunt force trauma of the head and face. She had bruising, abrasions, and lacerations. That means that there was close contact between the assailant and her when she's being killed.
Something strange caught their eyes, a bite mark on Sherri's left arm. What exactly happened to Sherri? Was it truly just a robbery, or revengeful motive behind her tragic death? In May 1984, Sherri met a guy named John Rutan. They clicked right away and began dating. A year later, they decided to tie the knot, and John moved into Sherri's apartment. February 24th, 1986. John left their condo on Balboa Boulevard to go for his new job. Meanwhile, Sherri was supposed to give a motivational speech at work that day. Around 9:45 a.m., a neighbor noticed something odd. John's garage door was open, but there was no sign of any car. Before leaving, John had made sure all the doors were closed, so this was quite unusual. About 15 minutes later, John called home, but no one picked up. He figured maybe Sherri had gone to work, so he shrugged it off. But as the day went on, his calls continued to go unanswered. John started to wonder. However, after checking in with Sherri's secretary and learning she hadn't shown up for work, John's worry meter spiked. Meanwhile, Sherri's sister Teresa Lane also reached out, calling her office around 10 a.m. A twist in the tale emerged when a maid cleaning a nearby unit reported hearing what sounded like a heated argument, followed by a loud thud around 12:30 p.m. When John arrived home from work at 6 p.m., he sensed something wasn't right. The garage door, usually closed, was wide open, and Sherri's BMW, the one he had given her as an engagement present, was nowhere to be seen. Considering Sherri's earlier plans, it seemed odd that she would have left without telling him. As John walked closer to the garage, he spotted scattered pieces of broken glass and quickly realized where it came from. Above the garage was a small balcony, and its glass door had been smashed. John stepped into the house through the garage. There lay Sherri, sprawled on the floor with her body horribly injured. Her eyes were swollen, and she had cuts and bruises all over her body, even on her head and neck. By the time John found her, she had been lying there for a while, and her body was stiff and cold. John desperately searched for a pulse and tried to revive her, but sadly, there was no response. Being panicked, he dialed 911, and soon enough, the police and paramedics rushed to the scene. As the detectives combed through the crime scene, they were met with utter chaos in every room. Furniture was tossed around, and it was clear there had been a violent struggle. A broken porcelain vase hinted at the severity of the attack on Sherri. Adding to the eerie scene, they discovered a handprint of blood near the alarm system the couple had recently installed. It seemed Sherri had desperately tried to trigger the alarm to let someone know she needed help, but tragically, she couldn't quite reach it in time. Inside the house, it was clear that the struggle had been intense, especially in the lounge room. The detectives found tall stereo speakers, one of which had been ripped from the wall and left on the floor near Sherri's body. As they continued their investigation, they collected more evidence from both the scene and from Sherri's body. They dusted for fingerprints around the house and also used an assault kit to gather swabs from the bite marks they found on Sherri's arms. The detectives also discovered abrasions on Sherri's wrists, which suggested that she had been tied up with a rope or cord, which they found near the front door. It was clear she had fought so hard that her fingernails broke off in the struggle. Adding to the horror, they also uncovered evidence that she had been shot 3 times in the chest. This shocking revelation led them to conclude that despite all her other injuries, the gunshots were ultimately what caused her death. One bullet had gone through Sherri's body, leaving an exit wound on her back, while the other 2 were found inside her. It was clear they were shot from a .38 caliber handgun fired at very close range. Adding to the mystery, detectives found a colorful quilted blanket on a chair in the living room. It had 2 holes and powder burns, which was suggesting that it was used to muffle the sound of the gunshots. With all this evidence, the police swiftly concluded that this was no ordinary crime. It was a botched robbery gone terribly wrong. According to the police, it seemed like at least 2 criminals broke into Sherri's apartment, but they didn't expect her to be there. So a fierce struggle broke out between them and Sherri, who fought bravely until the end. Several clues pointed toward a robbery gone wrong. First, Sherri's car was missing from the garage, indicating the robbers' intent to steal. Secondly, stereo equipment and a player were found near the staircase, which suggested the thieves planned to take them before the confrontation. However, things took a deadly turn during the scuffle, leading to Sherri's tragic murder. But this robbery theory had its flaws. First, the police didn't find any signs of forced entry. This meant the criminals either had a key to Sherri's apartment, or she let them in herself. Secondly, all valuable items, including a jewelry box, were left untouched, which raised doubts about the motive behind the break-in. Despite interviewing all of Sherri's neighbors, detectives came up empty-handed. While some residents heard sounds of a struggle, none of them reported hearing gunshots or seeing anyone enter Sherri's apartment. Experts also collected blood samples and fingerprints from the house, hoping to find clues to solve the case. However, DNA analysis wasn't possible at the time in the 1980s. To gather more evidence, the lead investigator had an idea. He took a piece of cotton and dabbed it on the bite mark found on Sherri's body. He hoped that if the attacker's saliva was left behind, it could be a vital clue in catching the killer. After their thorough search of the apartment, detectives stumbled upon an intriguing detail. The criminals had taken only one item, which was Sherri and John's marriage certificate. This raised eyebrows and suspicions, especially towards John, who was closest to Sherri, and could have had easy access to the apartment. However, John was quickly ruled out as a suspect in his wife's murder because he had a solid alibi and no apparent motive. In fact, he was the one who informed the police about the missing certificate, further clearing his name. At the time, detectives couldn't make sense of why the criminals took only Sherri and John's marriage certificate. Still stuck on their robbery theory, they focused on finding the perpetrators. After a week and a half of searching, they made a breakthrough. Sherri's car was found in a parking lot, 4 kilometers from her apartment.
We canvassed the whole San Fernando Valley burglary reports. And then a breakthrough. There had been a number of residential burglaries within the area, and the fact that there was a residential burglary a couple of weeks prior in a complex similar to this, not far away, where 2 suspects were observed. One of them did have a gun. We thought, wow, this is a great, great piece of investigative information for us.
In these incidents, 2 criminals would break into apartments through the garage, brandishing guns and stealing stereo equipment. The lead detective suspected that the same culprits might be behind Sherri's murder. They tried to track them down using witness accounts, creating rough sketches of the suspects. They also learned that both men were Latino. However, despite their efforts, the suspects were never found. This lack of progress frustrated Sherri's parents, who felt like investigators weren't doing enough to uncover the truth behind their daughter's tragic death. Nels Rasmussen, Sherri's father, wasn't convinced by the police's burglary theory. He regularly visited the police station, urging the detectives to consider other possibilities. He found it hard to believe that Sherri, who was tall, strong, and in good shape, could have been overpowered in a botched burglary. Nels was determined to get to the bottom of what truly happened to his daughter, pushing for a more thorough investigation into the case. Nels urged the police to look into John's ex-girlfriend, whom he didn't know by name because Sherri never mentioned it. However, Sherri did confide in her father about the unsettling feeling she got from the ex-girlfriend's unexpected visits. But who was this mysterious woman? And what was her connection to John? Well, her name was Stephanie Lazarus, and she wasn't just any ordinary ex-girlfriend. She was an LAPD officer. Right from the start, Stephanie developed strong feelings for John, but he remained oblivious to her romantic intentions. He saw her just as a good friend and was unaware of her deeper feelings towards him. To John, their relationship was nothing more than friendship, occasionally mixed with physical intimacy, and he assumed this was clear to everyone. Because of this, he never felt the need to discuss feelings with Stephanie or ask about hers. On the other hand, Stephanie was painfully aware of John's lack of romantic interest in her. So when Stephanie learned of John's engagement to Sherri on June 4th, 1985, it was a crushing blow. That night, Stephanie dialed John's number and her voice was trembling as she pleaded, "I really need to see you. Please come over." Being concerned, John agreed and hurried to Stephanie's house. When he arrived, he found her still in tears, which worried him deeply. Despite knowing Stephanie for 7 years, he had never seen her so upset before. He tried to soothe her, but before he could say anything, Stephanie suddenly poured her heart out, confessing her love for him. "I love you," she declared. "I've loved you all this time. I just couldn't bear to see you marry someone else." John. These included the detectives' detailed records documenting the ongoing investigation's progress. Yet inexplicably, they couldn't be located. This disappearance raised serious doubts. Was it a genuine mishap? Or had someone intentionally removed these documents from the case files? The victim's family suspected foul play, especially considering the involvement of an LAPD officer in the case. However, there were no significant leads, and the case remained unsolved for years. 7 years later, when the lead investigator Mayer retired, Sherri's father saw it as an opportunity and decided to meet his successor, hoping for a more committed approach to the case. Sherri's father requested the detective to conduct a DNA analysis and even offered to cover the expenses. However, the detective dismissed the idea, deeming it pointless because they didn't have a suspect to compare the DNA profile with. The detective asked him to move on, maintaining their belief that Sherri's case was simply a botched robbery. Meanwhile, John moved on with his life and started a new family. However, a peculiar turn of events occurred when he reconnected with Stephanie and they made plans to travel to Hawaii together. But just before their trip, something unexpected unfolded. John contacted the police himself, inquiring about any new evidence that would link Stephanie to Sherri's murder. It turned out that John suspected Stephanie's involvement in Sherri's murder and was determined to seek justice for her. However, he kept this suspicion to himself for years and hesitated to speak about it, even though he continued his intimate relationship with Stephanie. 3 years later, she married a fellow officer and they adopted a daughter together, relocating to Simi Valley. Despite her impeccable reputation, Stephanie continued to meet John regularly and maintain their relationship. As time passed, it seemed like Sherri's murder would remain unsolved forever. However, in 2001, a glimmer of hope emerged when a separate cold case unit was established in Los Angeles to tackle unsolved murders. Sherri's case, along with thousands of others, was assigned to the detectives in this unit. Among the evidence was the piece of cotton that may have contained the perpetrator's saliva, left behind after a bite during the attack. 2 years later, in 2003, detectives resumed their investigation into Sherri's case and sent all available evidence to the laboratory for DNA testing. However, it wasn't until December 2003 that a lab technician named Jennifer Francis began working on it. Due to a backlog of cases, they had to wait nearly 2 years for the results. Finally, in January 2005, Jennifer tested the blood samples from the apartment, as well as the fingernail clippings, and discovered that all the DNA belonged to Sherri herself. Now all that remained was to analyze the remaining sample from the bite mark on Sherri's body. However, there was a problem. The vial containing the sample couldn't be found for an entire day. After an exhaustive search, it was eventually discovered near the wall of a large refrigerator. It appeared as though someone had tried to remove all evidence linking to the killer, but by some stroke of luck, this crucial piece had been overlooked. After studying the sample, Francis detected that the DNA was from an unfamiliar woman. She quickly checked it against the FBI database, but to her surprise, there were no matches. Realizing the DNA belonged to a woman, she delved deeper and found a report about a third-party female who supposedly harassed the victim before her death, both at work and at home. Francis, curious about the possible connection, asked the detective overseeing her if this woman had been investigated. His response startled her. "Oh, you mean the LAPD detective." He went on to explain that the woman in question was a former girlfriend of the victim's husband and was currently serving as an LAPD detective. However, he quickly dismissed any involvement by stating firmly, "She's not a part of this." They didn't entertain other possibilities, and after hitting a dead end in their search for new leads, the case once again went cold. Sherri's case had its share of challenges, with progress often stalled by dead ends. However, in February 2009, a fresh opportunity emerged when Jim Nuttall and Pete Barbara took on the investigation in Van Nuys. They carefully reviewed the materials left by previous investigators. With the DNA evidence indicating a female suspect, they dismissed the burglary theory and realized they needed to retrace their steps from the beginning. Nuttall and Barba considered it as a murder rather than a simple burglary. They believed the burglary was staged to divert attention from the real motive. Several aspects of the crime scene didn't add up for a typical break-in, especially one that happened during the day. Sherri's jewelry box, an obvious target for thieves, was left untouched on her dresser. So they decided to make a list of all the women who could potentially be linked to Sherri's murder. After some investigation, they gathered 5 names, including one of Sherri's colleagues from work, 3 other young women, and Stephanie. Nuttall was surprised when John informed him over the phone that Stephanie was a police officer. At the time, Stephanie had been promoted to a higher rank of detective and was working on art theft cases as part of the Commercial Crimes Division. With the assistance of other investigators, they swiftly ruled out the 3 women from the list, as they lacked motives and had solid alibis. Next, they turned their attention to the nurse who worked with Sherri. The case file indicated that there were tense relations between them, so the police discreetly obtained a sample of her DNA from the trash she discarded. Experts analyzed the profile extracted from the sample, but found that it didn't match the saliva found at the bite mark. Consequently, the detectives were left with only one remaining suspect, Stephanie Lazarus. However, during this process, the detectives and their colleagues made a pact to keep this information under wraps until they could gather concrete evidence against Stephanie or rule out her involvement. By keeping it quiet, they aimed to prevent her from preparing a strong defense if she was indeed the killer. It was intriguingly convenient that Stephanie worked in the same building and on the same floor as them. So to maintain secrecy, they adopted numerous precautions, even avoiding mentioning her name in the notes. Instead, Stephanie was simply referred to as Number 5. As they delved deeper into Stephanie's life during the mid-1980s, they stumbled upon their first intriguing discovery. During the time of the murder, Stephanie owned a Smith & Wesson Model 49 .38 caliber revolver, the same type of gun used to shoot Sherri. Additionally, investigators discovered that Sherri had frequently complained about Stephanie's odd and sometimes aggressive behavior. The plot thickened when they learned that Stephanie had broken into Sherri's gated community and even into her apartment on multiple occasions. In a final blow, the detectives uncovered that just 2 weeks after the murder, Stephanie made a peculiar report at the police station. She claimed that her car, parked near the pier, had been broken into, and among the stolen items was a .38 caliber revolver. This revelation raised eyebrows among investigators, especially considering the circumstances surrounding Sherri's murder. It seemed highly suspicious that Stephanie would conveniently report the theft of a weapon similar to the one used in the crime. With Stephanie emerging as the prime suspect, the detectives wasted no time in informing their superiors. They devised a plan to discreetly collect a DNA sample for her, opting for a voluntary discard to avoid tipping her off about the investigation. For a whole week, undercover officers shadowed Stephanie's every move and waited for the perfect moment. Then, on May 28, 2009, their chance finally arrived. Stephanie and her stepdaughter popped into a cafe for a quick snack. As soon as they exited, the officers swiftly swooped in and grabbed the glass Stephanie had sipped from. Without hesitation, they sent it straight to the lab for analysis, hoping it would finally crack the case wide open. The following day, the lab delivered the results, and it was a bombshell. The DNA from Stephanie's glass was a perfect match to the DNA found at the bite mark from Sherri's body. It confirmed what the detectives had suspected all along. Stephanie was indeed Sherri's killer. The revelation sent chilling possibility that Stephanie may have been behind the disappearance of crucial documents from the initial investigation and erased any trace of her involvement. However, the undeniable DNA results left no room for doubt. With little time for contemplation, the investigators swiftly shifted their focus to developing a plan for Stephanie's arrest. The detectives even thought over the idea of apprehending Stephanie at her residence, but the thought of confronting her while she was with her husband and stepdaughter seemed fraught with risk. Instead, they brainstormed on how to compel someone of Stephanie's rank to surrender their weapon. Eventually, they hit upon a brilliant solution. The basement of the police department housed holding cells meant for temporary detention of criminals, where anyone entering had to surrender their weapon. This ingenious plan provided the perfect opportunity to safely arrest Stephanie without complications of her family being involved. Now, to lure Stephanie to the basement holding cells, the detectives devised a clever plan. On June 5, 2009, 2 detectives approached her with hidden microphones. They told her they had arrested a suspect who might have intel on stolen paintings. Since Stephanie was experienced in dealing with art thefts, they sought her expertise. Stephanie willingly agreed to assist and accompanied the detectives to the basement where the suspect was purportedly held. As she surrendered her weapon, the first part of the plan fell into place. However, upon reaching the interrogation room, Stephanie was in for a surprise. Instead of finding a suspect, the detectives meticulously and cautiously began revealing their cards one by one.
Like we're talking about being busy and stuff, we've been assigned a case that we've been looking at.
Okay.
It's a new case, and reviewing the case, there's some notes to see as far as your name being mentioned.
Okay.
Do you know John Rutten?
John Rutten?
Rutten.
Oh, yeah, I went to school with him.
You did?
Yeah.
How long did you know him?
Gosh, I went to school in, let's see, went to UCLA in 1978 I started, and, met him at school at the dorms.
Were you guys friends, close friends?
Yeah, we're very close friends. I mean, what's this all about?
Well, it's a case we're working on, and it involves John, and in there, some of the statements we reviewed, there's notes and stuff that he knew you and stuff.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we good friends, lived in the dorms for 2 years.
You guys lived in the same dorm?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Dykstra.
Okay. Were you guys just friends or anything else, or?
Yeah, we were good friends.
Yeah. Was there ever any relationship or anything that developed between you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we dated, I mean, what's this all about?
Well, it's relating to his wife.
Okay.
Okay. Did you know her?
Not really. I mean, I knew that he got married years ago.
Did you ever meet her?
God, I don't know.
Do you know who she was or anything?
Well, let me think. God, it's been a long time ago. I may have met her. Geez.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you. You said you dated John. How long did you guys date?
I mean, well, are you guys, is this something, I mean, you said I was going to interview somebody about art, and how you guys are, I mean.
Stephanie, here's the situation. It's basically, we knew that this, when we saw this in this chrono, that maybe, there was some relationship there. That's what the chrono seemed to indicate, and we didn't want to come up to you at your desk and ask those kinds of questions or do anything. You know how up there people can see what's going on if you go into an interview room or people are in there getting supplies.
Okay.
So we wanted to afford you some privacy, some confidentiality to talk about this, because we thought it might be, something, you're married to someone else, obviously, and so forth, and that you may not want to, talk about these things in that setting where someone, we don't want the rumor mill or gossip or any of that kind of stuff to start.
That's fine. I mean.
So we did this just as a means to try and speak to you in just a confidential place where where your business isn't out there for other people in your division to know about.
God, that's been a million years ago. I mean, what year is it now? 2009? I mean, I graduated in 82. 82, yeah. We dated. I dated other guys. I'm sure he dated other girls.
Well, let me ask you, roughly how long would you say you guys dated?
Oh, jeez.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because from what you're telling me, you guys dated while you were in college together, right?
Yeah, and probably after college. I can't.
Well, let me ask you, what ended the relationship between you and John?
I don't. It was kind of a weird relationship. We just, it just didn't work out. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It was like I went out with other guys, saw other guys. I went on lots of vacations. And
once you guys split, were you guys still friends, or kind of,
I mean,
is it friendly, not friendly?
No, I don't think it was not friendly. I mean, we were friendly. I know that we went to Hawaii at one point. Another friend of mine who's actually dying right now went to Hawaii with us at some point.
Remember roughly when that was?
Oh, geez. Let me think.
The detectives began by gently prodding Stephanie's memory, allowing her to share more about her past experiences. As Stephanie confessed her connection with John, the conversation naturally shifted toward Sherri. They asked Stephanie to recall her memories of Sherri and questioned her about the peculiarities of their interaction. such as the unexpected visits and incidents that could link her to the murder.
Do you remember her name or anything, or? Or what she did for a living, or where she worked, or anything about her?
Well, I think I'm going to say that I think she was a nurse. Man, I can't even remember how he said he met her. I mean, it's been so long ago.
Well, let me ask you, did you go to their wedding,
No, I didn't go to their wedding. No, did not go to their wedding. I don't understand why you're talking about some guy I dated a million years ago.
Well, do you know what happened to his wife?
Yeah, I know she got killed.
What did you hear about that?
I saw a poster at work. I'm sure I spoke to him about it. I think I spoke to another friend of his about it.
But you're not sure where he moved to after he got married?
No idea. I mean,
never went over to visit him, or
I don't think. I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I did. I know he lived on Roscoe for a long, long time. I may know. He may have told me where they lived, somewhere in the valley. He may have said I lived over such and such, but I couldn't tell you specifically where.
But you don't remember specifically ever going over to visit him or visit them and wherever he moved when he left Roscoe?
I honestly, I don't know. I don't think so, but
okay.
I don't want to say no, I don't think so, and then he says, oh yeah, she came over for something, dropped something off. I don't know.
So if you did go over there, just be like a quick thing, like you're saying, drop something off, or
maybe.
But you don't remember as far as like going there to have dinner or like a social, anything at the house, party?
Well, if you guys know something, I can't, I don't know. I don't think so. But
after John's wife died, you said you may have been talking to him. Did your relationship start up again?
I would say no.
Throughout the interview, Stephanie became increasingly tense and defensive whenever questioned about Sherri, and attempted to deny any recollection of their past interactions. Despite her efforts to deflect and evade, Stephanie inadvertently revealed enough information about their history. Now it was time for the detectives to reveal the truth to her.
Well, on this case, it occurred in '86, right? Detectives processed the scene, things of that nature. They did fingerprints and all that stuff. The standard stuff. You've been doing this longer than I have.
Well, not about that. I got 26 years on, going on 26.
19, so. But, as they processed everything, they did the best they could at that time, and they looked at a lot of people and different things in this case. And you're right.
If you guys are claiming that I'm a suspect, then, I got a problem with that.
Okay.
Okay? So, if you're doing this as an interrogation, you're saying, hey, I'm a suspect. Well, now I got a problem with, now you're accusing me of this? Is that what you're saying?
We're trying to figure out what happened, Stephanie.
I'm just saying, do I need to get a lawyer if you're accusing me of this?
You don't have to. You're here of your own free will.
I know, but
you're not under arrest. You can walk out.
You can leave whenever you like.
Well, I'm trying to give you some background of how I knew him, and now you're telling me that somebody's saying that we had this big old fight, and I don't even know what you're talking about. And I don't want to, get in trouble for something that I didn't even do, or you're saying I did something.
Okay,
we understand.
How would you guys like it if the tables were turned on you?
I understand. No.
No, that's what we're telling you. You're free to go whenever you want. If this makes you uncomfortable and you want to,
now you're starting to make me uncomfortable.
The thing is, detectives did what they could at that time on the crime scene. Okay, and the burglary thing you're talking about, that is an angle that they looked at. But now we're looking at everything else on the case, because nobody was ever arrested on the case.
I don't know that or not.
Okay. Now, what we'd like to do is, obviously, about all the DNA stuff and things of the nature that, gets done on cases nowadays. If we asked you for a DNA swab, would you be willing to give us one?
Maybe. Because now now
because
now I'm thinking I probably need to talk to a lawyer.
Okay.
I mean,
well,
because I know how this stuff works. Okay, don't get me wrong. You're right. I have been doing this a long time,
Yeah.
and I wish I had been recording this because now it sounds like there's you're selling these people saying I'm fighting with her, and now it sounds like you're trying to I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah, we know.
Okay, and now it almost sounds like you're trying to pin something on me.
No,
now I got that sense.
Well, what it gets to on these cases, and you know it as well as I do, our job is to identify and eliminate suspects.
I can't believe this.
So if we ask you to the point to give us a DNA sample, a buccal swab, so we can identify or eliminate you, would you be willing to do that?
Maybe. Because I know this.
Well, that's where we're at too. I mean, because right now, from looking at the evidence, it's possible we may have some DNA at the location.
That's great.
And we're going to do what we can to try to put this thing together. And your name's in the book. These people are pointing at you for whatever reason.
I don't know why. That's just crazy. I mean, that's absolutely crazy.
And it would be irresponsible on our part not to look at it.
I know. You guys have to do your job, and I guess I'm going to have to contact somebody. So
that's fair.
I mean, because I know how this stuff works. I
Sure.
mean, I just can't believe it.
I mean, we understand that. I mean, if we were in your position, I mean, we would feel the same way.
I just can't even believe it. I mean, it's just, I mean, I'm shocked. I'm really shocked that somebody would be saying that I did this. I mean, we had a fight, and so I went and killed her. I mean, come on. That's...
Okay.
All right.
Well, thanks for giving me the courtesy.
After the interrogation, Stephanie was allowed to leave, but as she reached the end of the corridor, several policemen were waiting for her with handcuffs. It was a dramatic moment, marking 23 years since the murder, as Stephanie was finally arrested. Even during the official questioning, she invoked her right to remain silent and adamantly denied any involvement, maintaining her innocence. With no confession forthcoming, the detectives had no option but to prepare the necessary documents for her transfer to court. Stephanie spent the next few years in a women's prison until her first court hearing that commenced in 2012. During the trial, the defense raised doubts about the DNA test results and highlighted the lack of prior suspicions against Stephanie. However, these arguments failed to convince the court. The prosecution presented their theory, alleging that on the day of the murder, Stephanie waited for John to leave for work before entering Sherri's apartment. Once inside, she confronted Sherri, which resulted in a struggle that moved downstairs. Ultimately, Stephanie incapacitated Sherri by breaking a vase over her head before fatally shooting her. Then she staged a fake burglary scene to cover her tracks and left the scene after taking their marriage certificate. In her house, they stumbled upon a journal from the mid-1980s filled with entries detailing her love for John and her distress over his relationship with Sherri. However, there was no mention of her gun being stolen. Additionally, her computer history revealed multiple searches for John's name during the late 1990s. These findings added weight to the prosecution's case, painting a clearer picture of Stephanie's obsession with John and her potential motives for the crime. On March 8, 2012, Stephanie's fate was sealed as the jury declared her guilty of murder. The courtroom fell silent as the judge handed down a sentence of 27 years to life in prison, with an additional 2 years for using a service weapon. Stephanie was finally behind bars, and John had moved on with his life. It's tragic to think that she took Sherri's life and ruined 3 lives in the process. But for what? In the end, Stephanie's attempts to make John love her were futile, and now she finds herself unhappy as well. If it weren't for dedicated detectives who took up the case, Sherri's story might have remained buried in dusty archives. But thanks to their expertise and the power of DNA evidence, justice was finally served. Sherri's parents finally found solace knowing that the person who took their daughter away from them was behind bars.